All in favor? Carried. Next, we have a delegation. That the committee received the delegation from Mark Harrison, Manager of Parks, Comox Valley Regional District, regarding Regional Park Service.
Move received.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Welcome, Mark.
Hi.
Hi. We don't see you yet, but you're coming.
Okay, I think you guys are in charge of that part.
Yes.
There we go. So, so thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. What I'd like to do is basically just do a presentation, very similar style presentation that I did to the board in December about the Regional Park Service. So I believe, no, I had sent my PowerPoint on to you, so I'm not sure how that gets displayed. So I'm hoping someone on your end can bring that up.
It's coming. There you go.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you very much. So yeah, today, basically what I want to do today is just provide some information on the Regional Park Service and explore some ways on how that service could potentially be activated. So I'm going to look at a few things. I'm going to look at regional parks versus community parks, so that that understanding is clear, that differentiation is made. And then I want to look at you know, why that service may be needed within our community. Then I'd like to look at possible approaches or the mechanism, the process that we're suggesting to look at in terms of looking at potentially establishing such a service, and then look at some examples. We can move on to the next slide if that's possible. So regional parks versus community parks, I think this is important to just differentiate. So the CVRD in the early 70s, they established a community park service as well as a regional park service. Now the regional park service eventually became dormant, and the only service that really the CVRD is providing right now is a community park service. That community park service operates in a very, very similar fashion to the municipal park service. So the way it's meant to work is that it's meant to benefit the local rural area residents, and it's paid for, funded by those local area residents. So that's for the acquisition, the development, and operations of those parks is borne solely by the area residents. So very similar to a municipal park. So a regional park is meant to be a separate and distinct function. It's really meant to complement municipal parks and community parks. And really it's meant to benefit the region as a whole. So all local governments, municipalities, and the regional district. And it would then be funded by all of the participating members within that service. So what we're suggesting is that that service be, the participants be the village of Cumberland, the town of Comox, the city of Courtenay, and the regional district. And so that we would all contribute to a regional park service and basically be able to fund and acquire, operate specific and meaningful regional park assets. So I think that's important to understand, that they're meant to complement what's there existing. It's not meant to take over anyone's park service or anything like that. So if we can move on to the next slide, that'd be great. So this is, you know, the crunch, the key question really is, you know, why is a regional park service needed? And I think, you know, with COVID this year and the pandemic, it's kind of shown the importance of natural areas for all our communities in terms of social and mental and as well as physical health. But what I think it's also shown is that it's shown some of the deficiencies that are currently within all our local government systems. There's been a lot of use on our park systems, and our carrying capacities are you know, at the limit, if not exceeded in many of our park settings. So if we brought something like a regional park service forward, we could all work together and achieve kind of common goals, and we can combine our resources and maybe be able to potentially acquire larger tracts of land. We could potentially create greenways, active transportation that could connect our core communities. Some of these kind of larger goals where all of us kind of benefit together. There's also been, you know, we could also collaborate on conservation efforts. It could be used to potentially help with natural areas that are maybe straddling jurisdictions. So, you know, I think about that, and I think about Cumberland. I think of maybe the Morrison Creek headwaters, how the CVRD, we've got the conservation area there that bounds up into the Cumberland boundary, and maybe there's a potential to expand that, and this service would allow kind of a more collaborative effort. I think that there's also, you know, the CVRD does own that Coal Beach property, and, you know, that's within a municipality, so that also creates a bunch of kind of complications, and a regional park service may be able to help with that kind of conversation. So, you know, I think what's important is it can do a bunch of things, but really it's up to the participants that decide to take on such a service as to what exactly it provides. So there's nothing that's prescripted in terms of what it could deliver. It's really a collaborative process where all the participants decide, you know, is this a benefit to us? And then if it is, you know, in what capacity could it benefit us? We can move on to the next slide. So the regional district staff came up with basically a three-step process that we could look at in terms of how we could potentially activate such a service. So really right now we're in step one, which is doing a collaborative background study, and that's really meant to inform all the elected officials and inform all of local government staff on you know, what a regional park service is and what it could do could bring forward to the region. And then we go into step two, where we'd actually establish that service through bylaw. And then into step three would be the strategic planning process. And there is where you really get into the details of the service in terms of, you know, the role, the vision, the direction that we as a region want this service to be. So those details kind of get flushed out at the end. So right now we're just in step one, which is just the background study. And what I see the background study as being is really kind of two-part. So the first part would just be the historical side of regional park service in terms of best management practices currently in place with other regional districts that have such a service. The different service delivery models that are out there in terms of funding, in terms of governance, in terms of operations, and then the regulatory requirements that would need to be in place for us to establish those services. So really kind of a background, a bit of an understanding of what's out there right now in terms of regional parks, and is there anything out there that you know, may be a benefit to us as a region. And then I think the second step is more the local context and looking at our own individual local government parks and greenways plans and seeing if there's anything in there, whether it's existing or future plans that might work towards regional goals, and to see, you know, what are we all kind of striving for, and is there something kind of in common here that we can all maybe work on together. So I think it's important to kind of just, again, reiterate, we're just in this step one. We're just working on the board has given us some regional feasibility study funds to do the background study. So we're just working on a request for quotes, basically trying to establish a scope right now. And that's something that we would work with each of our, within our working group, which is basically made up of the parks managers of each local government. So we would all look at this scope of service and make sure that we're all on board in terms of making sure that this background study delivers what we need to make sure that our staff and our elected officials are all informed about this service before we decide whether it's something that we want to partake in or not. You can go to my last slide. So I think I just want to kind of just really quickly close with some of these examples. The regional district of Nanaimo, the Capital Regional District, and Cowichan Valley Regional District on the island, they all have regional park services. And through those services, they're able to deliver kind of larger projects that benefit their communities as a whole. So, you know, some of the things like with the regional district in Nanaimo, they've got the Englishman River Park, which is quite a large park, a 207 hectare park, with also a big, large conservation area attached to it. And that was interesting because that was actually a regional park service function that collaborated with a conservation group. And I know locally the conservation groups are excited about this prospect of a regional park service. And I think that those opportunities to collaborate further are there. Within the RDN, also they've got the Combs to Parksville Rail Trail, and that basically is just a trail that connects core communities. So it's something that I can see is of value within our region. You know, connecting Cumberland to Courtenay, connecting Courtenay to Comox through this kind of more integrated active transportation system. I look at the CRD, they've got the Capital Regional District, they've got the Galloping Goose Trail, the Lochside Trail, 80 plus kilometers of trail that connects all their municipalities. Those are all driven by the Regional Park Service. Thetis Lake, Elk Beaver Lake in Saanich, those are large lakes within municipalities that are under the Regional Park Service. And then you look at Cowichan Valley, they've got Sandy Pool Regional Park. It protects swimming holes along their Cowichan River. They got Cobble Hill Mountain Regional Recreation Area, which is a large area of hiking and mountain biking and horseback riding that the region as a whole benefits from. And then they've also got the long Cowichan Valley Trail system. So just a few examples of what can happen when local governments all come together and work as a community and collaborate. I think that there's possibility of some good things that can happen, and I think we can take some of these examples and see, you know, what could possibly be possible here in our own regional district. So that's it for my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have, and just so you know, Doug.
Mark, you froze. Oh, you're unfrozen now. You were frozen there for a minute when you started to introduce Doug.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's my connection might be on and off, but I just wanted to let you know that Doug is on the line as well, and he's here to answer questions also.
Okay, what I'm going to do is go around the table. So we'll start with Councillor Kettler.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to both Mark and Doug. I see a lot of benefit with this service. You know, we have a small population in Cumberland, but we actually have a really large land area, and so it's a lot of natural habitat that we want to be looking after. And I think you know, we're stronger as a region if we're trying to protect land. We're doing it better if we're doing it together, and we're working on so many other initiatives together, including, you know, the integrated transportation, and I think that there's a lot of synergies there as well. So yeah, I'm happy that this got brought forward, and looking forward to seeing what Council has to say.
Councillor Sproul.
Yes, thanks for coming tonight. Trails and parks are perhaps my most, my passion in life, particularly the Wellington Colliery Railway. I'm really happy that the regional district was able to acquire the part from Royston all the way up to, well, up to the Cumberland boundary. So, and then of course, just after it gets into Cumberland, then there's a split to the north. So it connects a lot of the Comox Valley right up to Bevan. And I don't know what it will take to move it on. Part of the problem is the bridge over the highway, which seems an insurmountable problem. But anyway, so I'm very interested in trail connections between the communities and having, say, a regional trail plan. As far as parks, we have a tremendous amount of acreage in trails, and we have the wonderful agreement with Mosaic Timber West to be able to map and use the trails. So we've got an even larger amount of park than it really doesn't belong to us, but it might as well. We have that as long as we keep to the terms of the agreement. So I'm not sure how much more park we can actually contribute to, given that we have hundreds of acres now. I'm really not clear. I haven't thought it through about becoming a regional park service till this came up, but I've always wanted for us to have a trail plan that connects us, Cumberland being the hub, and then the spokes being, anyway, I've been thinking about this for 40 years, so I would wax on and I'll stop now.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thanks for this presentation. Cumberland is a lot smaller than the rest of the municipalities with a lot less resources. You had mentioned that the original background study is being funded by the CVRD. Is that wholly being funded by the CVRD?
It is being funded by the CVRD through the feasibility study service.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm really happy to see this move forward and to see what kind of what we can do together. Thanks.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I think, oh, thank you. Thanks, Mark, for your presentation. I agree with my fellow councillors. I think we all use areas in each other's natural areas, in each other's within each other's boundaries. And so collaborating on that level, including potentially linking some of those areas so that we're not driving our cars all over the place, would be really valuable. So I'm looking forward to seeing this move forward in some way.
Okay, I just have a question, and that's it. Who has the say on what becomes a regional park and what does not? Is it the committee? Is it the staff?
Yeah, and thank you very much for that question, Mayor Baird. I really, what the Regional Park Service can be for our region is really up to the participants. So the background study is just meant to show, what is out there existing, what other regional districts, how they fund, or what kind of criteria or priorities that they have for their regional park service. But it can really be anything that we want. So it's up to the participants. It's up to, yourselves and Comox and Courtney and the Comox Valley Regional District all kind of coming together and trying to decide, what's important for our region. And, what I'm hearing from, your councillors here today is that active transportation or connection through greenways is important to you. And that's something that could be brought up. And, maybe the service is only for that. Maybe it's just for active transportation. Maybe it's just to acquire large pieces of land, or maybe it's got a conservation focus. Really, it's up to all the participants to decide collaboratively together what that service can deliver. And I think it's really important, the collaborative piece. I think as a region, we all need to kind of decide what we want that service to be. So together, we can collectively make our region better.
Okay. And how long do you think this process is going to take?
I would think that the background study, I mean, we haven't even got that that out for quotes or anything yet. So that's probably 2 to 3 months at a minimum down the road. And then it's got to go out to all the councils. So we would need written support for such a service from each of the participants. And if that doesn't happen, then basically the service would be done. But if we get support from everyone, then we would have to establish that service through a bylaw. That in itself would probably take 3 or 4 months. It would have to be reviewed by the province, then get approved by the inspector of municipalities, and then it would come back to the board for adoption. And then at that point, we could then begin the strategic planning process where we really start to figure out the details about, okay, what is this role? What do we want this service to be? What do we want it to deliver? How is it going to be funded? How is it going to be managed? How is it going to be governed? All those details would get flushed out through a strategic planning process that would involve all the participants, but also involve the community. So that could be a lengthy process. So, you know, I think realistically, we're looking at, 2022.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question, because that is, now I don't have to tell you the other one. Because I was very concerned of it being put into a very short time frame. And when you say you're going to do a time frame, it takes away from other projects that you were doing. And because of the amount of staff that we have, it will be time consuming for them. So I'm glad to hear that you're looking at 2022. Some would say that's too far away, but in reality, it's not. This time is going to go very quickly. So I like everything that you said. I think that's great. You've obviously thought of this a lot and how it can work. So thank you very much. Councillor Kettler, you had your hand up.
I think actually Doug was going to say something.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Beard. Just one quick note. We did send a letter through to council requesting, the board was requesting if they were favorable of expediting this process. And I'm gathering through your conversation, perhaps you're not, which is fine. But we are asking for feedback sent back to the CVRD, whether you're in favor of expediting or not.
We will make that decision at the next council meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you're clear to understand that the process would be through 2021. So there would be some demand on staff. So in your case, Kevin McFendron would be part of the working group that would help with the background study and such. So there would be some demands on your staff time through 2021. But it wouldn't be like the service wouldn't actually probably be established and the details all figured out until probably 2022. Just wanted to clarify the timeline.
Yeah, I wrote it down. Okay. Did you have another question, Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, this is actually more of a question, for legislative services, but maybe you guys have discussed it with them about, is there options for Cumberland as to when we come in? Because we weren't part of the original letters patent when the CVRD, if they do the conversion bylaw, is that the time for Cumberland to come in, or should that go through and then Cumberland becomes a participant after the service is established?
Doug, he put his hand up.
Yeah, I think our intention is to complete the background study and bring forth those options. And one of those options will include how that service is established. And it'll also outline how participants can come into the service and the timing around that. So I wouldn't want to prejudge anything at this meeting or presuppose anything. So with that, I think we can wait for the background study and we'll make sure we note that as one of the requirements of the study. Thank you for that suggestion.
Okay.
If I can just add to that, their legislative services has found that because the current service, regional parks service that we have, it's been dormant for so long that the province would be pretty unlikely to want to reactivate that service. So we would more than likely be looking at a new service. Now there are special provisions within the Local Government Act that allow the establishment of a regional park service in exactly the same manner that we would have established it through a conversion. So the process hasn't changed. The only difference would have been with the conversion bylaw. You could convert with a 2/3 participant approval. With a full new service, all participants have to approve that. And I think that's what we wanted to do anyway. Regardless, we wanted all our participants to be on side. So I don't think it's going to change anything.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe by the time we're ready to make a decision, we could actually all meet in the RD's chambers. It would be so nice to be able to sit and talk to everybody and hear their points of view also. Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming and talking to us. And at the next meeting of council, we will make our decision.
Thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Next is recommend that the committee receive the delegation from Lister de Vitre and Ben Mason regarding a proposed Green New Deal for Cumberland. Welcome. Oh, sorry, just a minute. Motion?
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Welcome, gentlemen. It's nice to have you here this evening, and I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. And I see that I'm able to share my screen, so I will do that. Now, I sent it into Rachel Parker, or I'm not sure who I was contacting, but I sent in the original PowerPoint just to make sure it was all good. And we did add a picture of ourselves from a long time ago, so just bear with us. It's not exactly the same as when we sent it in, but it should be fine. I'm hoping you guys won't mind.
Oh.
So I'll just let Ben kick it off here then.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. We're really grateful to be here and very excited to talk about a Green New Deal in Cumberland. We've been working on this for quite a while now, and yeah, we've done a few presentations, telling people in the community, and yeah, we're very excited to be here. So thank you very much. My name is Ben Mason, and I've lived in Cumberland my whole life. I've always been really interested and really loved the nature around me, and I definitely have always had a big want to help it and to preserve it. So I was in an environmental social studies class that focused on the scientific reasons for environmental problems as well as the social reasons that they happen and continue to happen. And it was a really good class that focused a lot on local issues and took me around the community. And that was definitely something that got me very interested in this type of work.
And I am Lister de Vitre, as you now know, and I graduated from Vanier last year. I'm currently on a gap year, and like Ben, I've grown up in Cumberland, not as long as he has, but since I was about 5. So I also appreciate the beauty and the nature all around me. And anyhow, so I read this book called On Fire by Naomi Klein last year, and it was all about Green New Deal. So spoiler alert, it's basically a bunch of legislation to address the issues of climate change and social justice issues. So anyways, I read that book, but it was all about like federal and provincial things coming down. So it wasn't until I got a pamphlet in the mail from the Council of Canadians, and that was basically saying, maybe do it locally. It wasn't until then that I said, maybe I can just do it municipally. Cumberland's not that huge. It sounds doable enough. So here we are. So a Green New Deal in Cumberland and the importance of encouraging change. Throughout the presentation, we're going to be talking about the causes that are bringing us to need a Green New Deal. We're going to be talking about what Cumberland's already doing in these areas. And we're also going to be talking, most importantly, about what we're hoping to see as far as resolutions goes. So the first part, the local and global problems, climate change. The thing that got me the most interested in this project, it's, as we all know, pretty bad. The IPCC said in 2018 that we need to limit warming since pre-industrial eras to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And this is important because if we do not, then the likelihood of drought, extreme weather events, and rising ocean levels, among other things like ocean acidification, will increase.
We also have many local dangers to take into consideration. Rising sea levels pose a huge risk to low elevation areas and coastal areas, as well as being so close to huge amounts of with being so close to huge amounts of forest, that also causes a huge risk with forest fires increasing. And our forest is not only a huge draw to our town for tourism, it's also a huge symbol, I think, of Cumberland that people think of when they think of our village. There's also the Conesh Glacier, which is in the Comox Valley and is a huge symbol from many things, such as a hockey team or many different things, but also our local First Nations groups. It is a huge, it's somewhat of an origin story for them. And it is sadly projected by some to disappear within our lifetimes. So we are already seeing problems from climate change happen, which we can see, such as these pictures on the side from the top going down. The top is the Conesh Glacier in 2013, then 2014, and at the bottom, 2015. And as you can see, just in those 3 years, and each year is increasing change, really drastic and very noticeable. The world also has many social justice issues, many things that we've done wrong and continue to do wrong that we need to move forward and rectify. That's also a big part of a Green New Deal. A Green New Deal is not just to fight climate change, it's about making our society as a whole so that we can deal with issues such as climate change, which are such a huge problem that we face, but our society in general will stop them from happening in the future and solve all problems we have. Groups like Black Lives Matter gained huge traction last year with protests happening. And obviously, I think we all know he just recently is not as big, but there are some public polarizing figures that really increased tensions that minority groups already face, and we're at really a crossroads moment that there are a lot of division. Lister, are you?
Can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted on my own microphone. So yeah, Canada still has issues to face, as much as we want to point fingers down south. So first of all, reconciliation. We can see just on some statistics from StatsCan, First Nations communities have 3 times the average suicide rate as compared to the baseline. Métis have twice as high, and Inuit have up to 9 times as high. So obvious issue just with that one statistic, or 3 really. LGBT plus people still face discrimination. I read in a survey by the Jasmine Roy Foundation that 40% of LGBT plus people still find they've been discriminated against based on their sexual orientation or gender identity, another glaring issue. Racialized Canadians have double the average poverty rate, and it's even more than double that of Caucasians. Another scary statistics from StatsCan. And then the wage gap still hasn't disappeared. Women on average still earn 87 cents for every dollar a man earns. We've still got lots of issues to work on, not specifically in Cumberland, but in Canada for sure. But there's a solution, a way of saying yes, and that's what we're proposing today. And we've got this lovely picture Ben took while he was doing ecological work at Vanier.
And Cumberland is already doing a number of things. I think that we're, as a community, we like to be on the side that's progressive and understands that these issues are big problems and that we need to do our part. So we are already doing quite a bit, such as the village, as you all know, obviously, are measuring greenhouse gas emissions and offsetting them by buying carbon bonds each year. The Cumberland has signed the BC Climate Charter Action in 2010. And also a huge step was Cumberland adopted the social procurement framework in August 2015. And the thing I really liked, I read on the website, and the thing I think really sums up the social procurement really well is that it was talking about how usually when a project comes, you look at your best value. So that would be making sure that you're spending the least amount of money for the most amount of results. But with a social procurement framework, it focuses on not only spending the least amount of money, not only getting the best results in some way, except that we want to focus on social problems being fixed within that project. So focusing on that as a part of the best results, that it helps the community by the end of it. Obviously, their community is also quite active and has led initiatives such as, we all know, the Cumberland Community Forest Society, doing really great work in our community.
And then there's water that we've been working on. We've got the liquid waste management plan, watershed management plan. So as we can see, Cumberland's also we've been fairly proactive in this area as well, which is great to see. And now we're going to come to a Green New Deal in Cumberland. So we're going to be kind of like going over each of the sections that are like each of the headers from our resolutions list. And then, so you'll see like multiple bullets underneath, and those are just example of what's in there, like little examples of what we have and things we find are important to talk about. But know that that's not like the only thing in there. So firstly, we have kind of two categories of what we call low-hanging fruit resolutions. And those are the ones that are, I mean, based on the name, they're going to be simpler. So the first category of those are, we call them call-ons. And that's things like where we say, hey, provincial government or federal government, can you do this or that? Basically things that we don't have control over, but that we can ask them to kind of help us out with. And then also kind of encouraging positive projects is another part of that. So the example there, public transit, in that section, since we are not the CVRD, we can't really do much about it, but we can ask them to do stuff about it. And then there's resolutions that are already in line with what we're doing or have pretty much already been completed. There's a lot of those in there as well, so that's a good thing to hear. We just want to make sure it's in paper. And one example of that would be the water management section, which is pretty much stuff we're basically already done or are in line with doing. That brings us to environmental policy, the first half of this whole deal. So emissions targets is the first section to talk about. And it's basically saying we got to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030, and then get to net neutral or reduce by 100% by 2050. And although we're technically already net neutral with our offsets, Ben and I think it's super important to also reduce our emissions anyway, because it's going to be really important going forward, and also just to send the right message. And the 2030 part is also really important, because if we're going to have any shot at limiting the rise in temperatures by 1.5 degrees globally, we got to get 50% down by 2030. And then next up, we have energy and electricity. So these things are a bit more open-ended and ambiguous, and that's for a reason, because these things, some of the goals are a bit lofty, and we're just hoping to get whatever we can get. We'll take what we can get. So in a perfect world here, we have require new developments to include renewable systems. And new developments, it's left open-ended because ideally that would be, residential, industrial, commercial, but in reality, it could be any of those things. And then with renewable systems, that could be, solar panels on every roof, or that could be just make sure you're not relying on fossil fuels. It's open-ended. Secondly here, and we think it's a little bit more attainable because we actually control municipal buildings and there aren't too many, and that would be installing renewable systems on them. And it would be also a really good thing for our image. If we're going to have a Green New Deal, we think it's important to get some maybe solar panels up or whatever we're thinking. And then thirdly here, create incentives that allow all constituents to equitably access green infrastructure. And this one, again, is a bit lofty when you think about it. I mean, there's grants available from UBCM, and there's another one as well. But I can see how it would be costly, but if we could make it so that the average constituent could more easily access these things that are more expensive, such as solar panels or electric vehicles, I think that would be a huge step in the right direction.
Another huge part of a Green New Deal, as I was saying earlier, it's not only about environmental, it's about our society as a whole, would be the social policy. So we have a few sections. So making sure that we're implementing Indigenous rights frameworks and that local Indigenous groups are a part of any planning, and that we can have everyone be a part of the community and everyone have a fair say in design. Also means funding community-led resources for women and LGBT plus constituents where applicable. So that's making sure that we're funding projects that, again, help us have a more equitable society and a good equitable community. So these are all some points that we have under our sections, as well as low carbon jobs, part of a Green New Deal and of mitigating climate change and changing how our society is done is a just transition, meaning that anyone working in the oil and gas sector or other harmful to the environment areas is not a bad person. They're not doing anything wrong. It's the industries that are the problem, but that person is just doing a job and doing a good job at that. So they need to be brought along. They need to be trained. And that means Cumberland needs to support expansion of good low carbon jobs, which there are many of. They are booming right now, doing very well at the moment, and will continue to do well because we don't have a lot of other options for them. We have to do well because that is how we move forward. Some other sections would be livability, food security, and health and social services, making sure everyone in our community has ample access to municipal services. so that people in the community can get help when they need it and that nobody has to have problems like that. Also, housing, as we know, is a huge problem in BC. For example, a Demographia survey that I was reading from 2019, they divide the average house cost by the average income in a community, and their scale 3 is considered affordable, a 3.0, and Vancouver being the very least affordable in BC, they reached a 12.6, so quite high. Nanaimo was an 8, and then right behind, we were a 7.9. So to put that into perspective, we're almost as close to being affordable as we are to not being affordable. That is, so we're quite dangerous in that sense. We are right in down the middle. So I think we have a choice, and we can go for one way or other. Also means assessing rental accommodation and ensuring all practices are fair and just, and that all landlords are doing things reliably and fairly within the rules. As well as one of our sections is revenue generation. Of course, a Green New Deal can be quite costly, but one thing we have been saying is that it's much cheaper than doing nothing. Doing nothing is not an option. That is not a sustainable thing for us to do, and we can't do that moving forward. So one way we think that would be good is exploring progressive taxation options, but there are different ways.
So that brings us to our last slide here with about a minute to go. And I just want to mention one more thing that we think is important. So if we have a Green New Deal in Cumberland, if we say, look at us, we're a Green New Deal community, we're hoping that'll inspire other communities like Comox and Courtenay, CVRD, to be more amiable to also accepting a Green New Deal. So maybe we can make something of a positive start here in the community and snowball to elsewhere. So that's something I'm really excited about. So our last part here, we are dedicated to further helping develop this initiative. So if you guys want to reach out to us about anything in here, or if you have questions, comments, our emails are down here. And I believe somebody, Rachel Parker, somebody has the original presentation if you guys don't feel like writing down our emails or anything. So I'm sure you'll be able to contact us. So yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Are you open to questions right now?
Yes,
sure.
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay. As soon as we go back to, I can see everybody, we'll start. Okay, Councillor Spruill.
Well, I'm really impressed, actually. It's wonderful. I've seen both of you growing up, and now when so many other youth are busy having a fun time, I'm sure you're enjoying a lot of this. You guys are dealing with very important matters, and I think you have a chance of reaching people, particularly young people, in easier than I do, because you know how to reach out. And anyway, I'm impressed, and I thank you so much, and we will consider a lot of these, as much as we can of this. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Thanks, fellas. This is great. You guys really have taken a deep dive on all this stuff. I'm really happy to say, and you guys have mentioned it already, like does a great deal of all this stuff already, right across the board. And that we've adopted the UNDRIP with the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, with the water bottling. A lot of the stuff that you guys are mentioning here, we've already taken initiatives towards. But the stuff that isn't, I think, yeah, that's great that you guys have brought this forward, and I'm really, really proud of you guys, and this is a great job. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben and Lister. That was really great. Thanks for all your work on it. I think you're right. I think the pandemic and the social movement, the BIPOC movement that came via the pandemic has created an opportunity for wide social change, and but it's not going to come by itself. It needs leadership, and so I very much appreciate your leadership on this, and I think council has an opportunity here to provide that leadership, not only for our constituents and with our constituents, but also, like you say, to other municipalities and in other areas. So just thank you for bringing it forward. I did want to ask that, so it's quite a long list of resolutions. And so if we adopt some, like I think if we could work some into our annual strategic priorities, because they all sort of fit within our annual strategic priorities, we could sort of tick them off over several years. So just want to set expectations at a reasonable level, given our all the other demands on us. So yeah, that it might not be as quickly as we'd like to see, but I think we can move forward on some things.
And if I could just add on to that there, we totally acknowledge that it is a long list, and some of these things are more on the lofty side, so we'll take what we can get. What's really important to us, I would say, is that, like I mentioned there at the end, if we just kind of say, like, look at us, we're a Green New Deal community, I think that's holding a lot of power as well, since Cumberland, we're great here, but we're not as big communities as the other ones around us. So if we can just be a start, and then we can use that to kind of get an entryway to these other bigger places where we can affect even more. So, but that's a great point. Thank you.
And also, I think with the Green New Deal, it's also really important as we make more changes to our society, it becomes a lot more easy to make other changes. So it can be a slowing and it can be a checklist as sorts, but yeah, each one will make the next one a little easier. So I think it'll be fine if we do it over a period of time.
Yeah.
Councillor Kettler?
I agree. Stepping stones. You guys are great. Thanks so much for presenting. Yeah, I think there's a lot, as Councillor Brown said, this is a great time of strife, but, opportunity for change as well. And I think that's happening. A lot of the groups I'm talking to, there's a lot coming down the pike. And one of the things I just got today was a draft plan from a group, the Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Climate Action Group. And almost all of the things that are listed in your resolution are also part of this plan. So I think you'll be interested to see that when it comes out, and that will be coming to council. So that might be an opportunity to sort of see some of these resolutions, some action on them. And I also have the opportunity to speak to a bunch of MLAs later this week, including the Minister of Environment. Yeah, I'll be mentioning this presentation to him and some of the actions that you've outlined here. But there is a lot of good things happening. As you mentioned, we do the Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program already. And that's to lower our own corporate greenhouse gas emissions, but we don't have a community-wide greenhouse gas plan, and we don't have it as a region either. And so that's sort of something that we need to be working toward, and we need to get the data for that at sort of a baseline so we can set targets for that. So we're still working on that. Another thing I wanted to mention was a councillor from the city of Courtenay, Will Cole-Hamilton. He'll be bringing forward an initiative around something called PACE. It's Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. And it's a way for people to self-finance green energy projects on their own home through municipal taxes. And I think that's a great way that we're going to make a lot of change with our greenhouse gas emissions, which buildings make up about 1/3 of our greenhouse gas emissions. So if we can start retrofitting, that's a great way to lower greenhouse gas emissions, but also create jobs. And you were talking about transition economy, maybe moving some of those oil and gas workers over to a home retrofitting industry, which would be sort of killing two birds with one stone. So yeah, I really appreciate all that you presented today, and I will be taking it forward, as I said, and I think there'll be a lot. You'll be seeing a lot of change in the next few months as well. So hopefully that gives you some hope.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan, you've got your hand up again.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to both you guys, our official community plan review will be coming up I think it was supposed to be this year or next year, but it's been put off partly due to COVID. But when that comes around, we ask the community members who want to be included in the review. So just keep your ears open when that happens coming up in the next year. And I'm sure you guys would, we'd love to have you help out with the official community plan and have your input during those times too.
That would be
That'd be
really
sweet.
great. We would definitely love to help with that.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm really glad to hear what the rest of council has said. I think that's very important. You've obviously come at the appropriate time. And I'm sure we will move forward on the processes that the next council meeting council will decide. And there probably will be a recommendation to send it off to staff to come back with a report to council advising which ones we could take, which ones we're already doing, and which ones we could look at that would fit into our strategic priorities right now. And so there is a process that we will follow, but it's moving it forward. I think there's many things that you highlighted that we can look at, even if it's not in our strategic priorities. We have the opportunity to talk to ministers at all times that we wish. And so we can promote it, what we think, and hear back from them on the way they're going and what they're doing. The only one question I want to ask you is, have you had any connection with the Comox Valley Youth Council?
The Comox Valley Youth Climate Council? Yeah. I went to their AGM. Unfortunately, Ben was busy. He wasn't able to be there, but I attended their AGM. I'm now part of their political committee, so I've been talking to them about this. They're excited. And yeah, I'm hoping to be able to work with them to work on Green New Deals for other parts of the valley. But yeah, so it's a neat group.
Well, I'm really proud that you stepped up to the plate and have completed this. It's obvious to me that, and the rest of council, how much time you spent on this. And we do really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so
much. And we look
much.
forward to hearing and working with you down the road.
Yeah, it's definitely been hard work, but it's also been quite a labor of love. We've enjoyed it quite a bit.
And when you have a passion for something, it really shows.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks so much.
All right,
very
I will
much for having
stop my
us.
video again.
Next, we're going on to reports. Recommend that the committee receive the verbal report on the website homepage update.
Move receipt.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Kaylin.
Oh, I'm first.
Oh, you're first. Okay.
I'm first. So we thought we'd just do a brief update on our main website that happened over the new year. This is just the updates to the homepage. So I will, another share screen here. I can get the right button. Okay, so this is the new homepage, and I'll just go over a few features that that we were working on last year. The first one is the welcome message to the website. It was very subtly directed towards visitors in the community, so we thought it was really important. We heard Council at Strategic Planning last year really say that, you know, change their direction, and the focus was more towards services for residents. So we thought that was really important to reflect it in the website. So we changed this welcome message to really clearly say that the website was to provide information for residences, and you'll see that reflected in the information that we provide on the website, and also in the images that we have up there. So going into navigation, that was our big target for this update, to really improve the navigation on the website and make it easier for people to find information. When the site was originally developed, it was targeted as a search base only website, but since it's been in place, we've really heard residents say that the need for some structure and some navigation to sort of supplement that search base. So you'll see in the black row here, there's 4 menu areas, and this was originally meant to be sort of shifting topics, but we've made these fixed menus, and with 4 main service areas: Parks and Rec, Building and Development, Village Office Services, which is a catch-all, and then Doing Business in Cumberland, which Kaylin will tell you more about coming up. And we're going to be working more on these menus. This is just sort of the first step. So these are fixed menus. And if you access the site from a handheld device, these won't show up, but there's the little menu icon that you can draw from to find those. So the second change on the website was these feature topic boxes. We added this, the public meeting stays the same. We've added this quick links. And these are things that people might not be able to find intuitively on the website under those top menus. Things that are harder to find, things that are seasonal, we can change these up at certain times of the year to put more popular topics like fire permits and that sort of things, or firework permits. So hopefully that'll help people find things they need a little easier. We've got a recreation box, and you'll see that recreation gets a main menu, but it also gets a feature box because everyone loves recreation and it's very popular on the website. So we thought it deserved 2 mentions. And there's a link there for recreation programs and the recreation center itself. And another popular item, of course, is the weekly waste collection, and for people to find out what they need to put out that day. So we made a feature box for that. So one other update that's worth a mention is the make a payment page. Finance worked pretty hard to accommodate credit card payments, which was challenging within our systems, but they're using a couple of third-party services, and it's been fairly popular with business licenses and dog licenses. Those smaller payments, larger payments still tend to be paid by check, but this has been well used by the community. So just moving on for this year, we plan on doing more updates, adding more menu and navigation, ease of navigation, move forward on that. And of course, more fillable forms, online fillable forms. And I'd love to hear feedback from council, and I'm sure that you often have comments from community members, and I'm always keen to hear about what people have to say and where their challenges are on the website, so we can work to make it better.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Thanks, Rachel. That looks great. I might just suggest that maybe on the homepage that we put somewhere that we're on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. That's my suggestion. That's it.
I think it is quite small at the bottom, but I think if you haven't seen it, I think it needs to be made a little clearer. Okay.
But I'm really excited for the changes, that's for sure. It's great. Happy to see it.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. And the most frequent complaint I hear is just the searchability. So having that working better will be great, great help. And just having the headers, I think, will help direct people. I think it looks great. Let's see how people respond to it.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, thanks. I think you've made it more user friendly, but I guess we'll see, how it plays out and what the feedback is. Thanks.
Councillor Sproul?
Yeah, it really looks nice. It's easy to read. I like the across rather than the up and down, and yeah, more information in one place on the one page. So yeah, I like the new look. Thank you.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's really good. I get frustrated sometimes and come in here and have to ask staff to help me find something. So I hope that eliminates that, and I'll let you know. So thank you very much. It looks really good. Thank you for all your work, Rachel.
Thank you.
Next item is that the committee received the presentation on the Village of Cumberland Economic Development web portal.
Who received?
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, it's nice to see you again. I guess following off Rachel's coattails, we're going to look at a second website. And so the economic development website is ready for a look from council. I've got Jen and Craig with us from the Update Company, and Craig will walk you through the website and how it functions and what the goal was. As you recall, this is part of the late 2019 funding we got from Rural Dividend, and it got put towards the investment attraction piece, the Bevan planning piece on the industrial lands, and the development of this web portal. And really interestingly, it's taken a while, and COVID had an interruption in that, but it's changed really what we thought this website would be. When I started out with this website, it really was a promotional piece of getting Cumberland's name out there, attracting and putting out our values and data and information around Cumberland. So when people want to do business in Cumberland, expand our non-residential tax base, that they have a lot of that information at hand. It's quite common. It's used by a lot of economic development functions. This year, earlier in 2019 or 2020, sorry, when we were getting close to launch, COVID hit. And it really kind of changed my perspective of, do we want to be doing that outward marketing piece right now, inviting people into our community? And we've taken a bit more of a tone with very grateful for the Update Company's help of it's also kind of what came up. I know Councillor Sullivan and perhaps Councillor Brown has seen this website through the Economic Development Steering Committee. What came really important is us to tell our story. And what's going to invest and what's going to create investment and attraction to our community is the honesty of our story. So people know that our values align and that we're the place that they want to do business. So it's a little bit late in coming. We're over schedule on how long it took. Update Company was very patient with me. We're under budget. We're on. And unlike what Rachel just showed you, this is an outward facing website. And I'm a bit cautious with this. This is inviting the world to see us. And this is going to be an important piece. It's very focused on doing business in Cumberland. And so you'll click on that link off our main page. It'll take you to that website. This is going to show you the data about who we are, where things are, the business and types of organizations. This website was really dependent on those studies like the investment attraction, which provided the data, the information around what our competitive advantages are. And with that, we've also reached out to a local photographer, Sarah Kempner, who's becoming a bit of a star in her own right. She's provided us with a library of beautiful photos that you'll see that represent our businesses. I think the Update Company's done a very good job. I'm very proud of this. So maybe I'll pass it over to Craig and he can show you himself. I also acknowledge I did not put a link in your report and I intended to. So tomorrow I will email you a link to this website and I would appreciate you each to have a look at it. And if you have any input for us, to send it our way before we go to a soft launch later this month. So Craig?
Okay. Hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Craig Vandemerva, Director of Creative Services at the Update Company, located in the Old Marochi's Grocery Building on 2nd Street. And myself and Jen, who's on the call, and our team have been working with Kaylin for a number of months on this. And we've had a couple check-ins with the Economic Development Steering Committee, but we're excited to give you guys a preview tonight. And so just before I get started, I'll just say that this isn't live, so nobody in the community can just go there and look at it at this point. We're just sort of rolling up to a soft launch, fine-tuning some stuff with Kaylin, but things are getting close. Let me share my screen here. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So following up on what Kaylin was saying, this website is really different than Cumberland.ca. So Cumberland.ca is for residents who have concerns, questions, looking, want to find out about property taxes or dog licenses or any of those things. Whereas this website is really for people that either want to move a business here, open a business here, or they want to invest or do some sort of development in Cumberland. And so you can see right off the top here, we're trying to capture Cumberland. We got this great Thunderballs photo here. I know Kaylin's been working hard trying to get us lots of images. And so the first statement there is just welcome to legendary Village of Cumberland. So we're trying to capture a little bit of the feel of the community right away, just so people know that you know what community they're looking at, I guess. You'll see a little bit further down that, you know, we're not necessarily Courtney or Campbell River exactly. So I'm just going to scroll through the website a little bit, and then you guys can ask lots of questions. And if I'm scrolling too fast or anything like that, just let me know and I'll slow down. So as we're scrolling down, we get to these two main sections here. And so this is really the two audiences that Kaylin was mentioning. So people that want to do business in here, or in Cumberland, they're going to come to this section on the left. Anybody interested in larger sort of development or investing, they're going to go on the right. And so we're trying to capture those right away so that those two sections of the site will be sort of the one-stop shop for information for anybody who's interested in those economic development activities. And then as we go below that, we start to talk about why Cumberland is different. So our competitive advantages, what the future, what sort of industries we're looking for, what the future's like. And then we speak to living in Cumberland and a little bit of the story of Cumberland. And so we're just trying to give people background on, you know, this isn't Squamish, it's not Calgary, it's not Nanaimo, not Vancouver, it's Cumberland. And we're a little bit different. We think we're special. And just trying to communicate that to people so they have an idea of what they're getting into if they're coming here. So as we keep going down the page, right now we've got this one success story here, and as a sample. And so we're highlighting Hikai Energy Solutions in this one. The idea is that we could feature multiple businesses in the community and put them up, you know, whether they're in different sectors or they're new or they're old or whatever, to highlight some of the successful businesses in the community. So it's possible that when the site launches that we won't have enough of these. So we'll probably just hide this section at the beginning when we first launch. But yeah, we'll be able to feature businesses in here.
And it might not just be a lack of having the content. It might just be that it's not the right timing.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll take a look at that for sure.
We've got this nice big box that's all about Kaylin. So if anybody has questions, they're going straight to Kaylin. So we're really trying to make it easy for anybody that is trying to make something happen here to get a hold of Kaylin, because he's he's going to be able to be their best source of information and direction. And then below that, we go into some news. And so different than the Cumberland.ca site, this is all economic development specific news. So there might be some things that end up on both sites, but what we're really trying to get right here is anything that's specific to somebody who's starting a business or development. And so we can feature some. We've got a few here. They can go off and look at all of them. And then we drop down into the footer. So that's the home page. And then if we're looking at the menu at the top of the website here, you can see it's really about doing business, investing and developing. And that's these two sections here. So if I'm interested in starting a business, I'm going to hopefully land myself on this page. And then it sort of goes into a bit of an overview of the kind of businesses that we're hoping people are going to open here. And then it goes into all the information that they might want to know before they start working on opening their business. So like Lister and Ben were talking about, we're letting people know about social procurement. We've got zoning and bylaws, applications, all that stuff's here. And the way the website's been built, we can add more of these if we want to. So if there's some other thing that we decide businesses need to know, we can add that extra block on here. And then as we go down, it's back again promoting the competitive advantages, living in Cumberland, all those things that make Cumberland special. And then same sort of stuff on the bottom. If I jump over to investing and developing in Cumberland, you'll see it's the same style of page, but it's just shifted its focus for a different audience. But it's got the other stuff in here that people might be interested in, so real estate, regional partners, and development permits and all that sort of stuff is in here. So if I were to jump through to development permits, forms and applications, then I'll end up on an internal page here. And so all of these ones have their own sidebar navigation. So if somebody lands here and they're looking at permits, but then I want to jump over and find out about zoning, they can do that here as well. And all this content, it's easy to be, it can be updated and quite easily as things change.
Hey, Craig, it's Kaylin here. I just want to acknowledge as well, when we go to zoning bylaws, when we click on the links within here, it's going to take us back to our home website. So a lot of the stuff in here is access to our home website. We're not necessarily recreating a spot to store it or having two things that we're going to have to update. These are all going to link back to our original catalog of information.
Yeah, it's the information portal that gets people to the information they're looking for. Doesn't necessarily mean it's on here. And so, yeah, these two menus are giving people access to all that information. And then we have this More tab. And this is where we've put in the other information, you know, when we're trying to talk about why Cumberland's different, why Cumberland's special. And these pages, as you're scrolling down, some of them have quite a few sections on them. So we have this extra additional navigation bar that'll allow you to jump down to a section or jump back up. But yeah, so there's content in here that's sort of speaking to a small summary of what, you know, if somebody's not familiar with Cumberland, it gives them that sort of little crash course. It's not the whole museum and archives history of Cumberland, but it's a little taste of it, so they know a little bit more about Cumberland. And then the news section, in here again, so we've got this one's featured. So if there's something really important that, you know, maybe we've released some less important stuff afterwards, we want to highlight it, we can stick it to the top of the site here so everybody will see it. And then it just sort of keeps going with all the different news that would be important to anybody from an AcDev side of things. And then once we get the those business success stories loaded in here, people will be able to just see those if they want, or other categories that we define. So, and all that stuff's flexible and can sort of evolve over time. And then, yeah, contact, we're really just promoting Kaylin, trying to get everybody to contact Kaylin. Little form here, we got his business hours, so everybody will be tracking him down, no problem. Couple other things that are on here. We've got these social icons at the top here, which would go to AcDev specific social media. And we just built the site with that in mind. Those accounts don't exist right now. So when we launch, there won't be those links won't be there, but whenever that happens and those accounts do get created, then we can easily add them in here. And then the site also has a really great search similar to the Cumberland.ca site. So. But yeah, that's the tour. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions or comments. We're 100% looking for some feedback. So
I think it's Councillor Brown. You weren't first last time, were you? I can't see you.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you. And thanks, Craig. Many spirited conversations at the AcDev committee around how this should look and feel, and you guys really did a great job. The language and the photos and the it looks great. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Councillor Kettler.
I agree. Absolutely fantastic. That's the first time I've seen it. I was part of the AcDev community. So yeah, no, that's very exciting. I did have one question about the search. So is the search on that one linked to our other search at our main page?
It's not. So it's just searching that site. So it's looking in there for the information on that site. And so it won't pick up things about like dog licenses or anything like that. It's only searching in the content on that site.
Okay.
But if it is something that's like Kaylin was saying, where the information does live on the Cumberland.ca site, they'll end up finding the reference to that on the AcDev site, and then they can jump over.
Okay. Councillor Sproul.
Well, I don't know what to say. I'm almost speechless at what is now happening in Cumberland. I wanted some, I mean, we all wanted some promotion of the beauties and the environment, but this website really captures what Cumberland is about and the desirability, the livability for families. Again, part of me is going, whoa, we're already attractive and this website is going to really bring people in. But I think we're ready. I do feel that website gives the impression, Kaylin, and very good impression that we're ready and open for business. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I just echo the sentiments of all of council. It's fantastic what you guys have put together. Definitely shows the Cumberland is pretty much prepared for the future. Finally, we've come a long way at this point. And yeah, that's some serious business you guys are putting forward. I'm really, really excited about the website and its professionalism, but its simplicity. And you guys just hit a home run on that one. So great job.
And I'll echo the rest of council's comments. An amazing job. Well done, Kaylin and Jennifer and Craig. It's something to be very proud of. And I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of positives about it. So thank you very, very much.
Excellent. You're welcome. Thank you.
We got all the warm fuzzies happening. So thanks, guys.
Well, thank you. Okay. So we'll go on to our next item, and that's Kaylin, you're still with us. The committee received the Cumberland Business Association update report.
Receipt.
Second. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's time to talk some CBA. You might have noticed, particularly in the last 6 months over Christmas, especially, of all the great work that they've been doing. And I sort of wanted just to bring a report to you in front of you to talk about their goals and their plans and what they've been up to. And ideas that I have, I think that we can best support them, especially in a time of recovery as we face a pandemic right now. I think helping the CBA is one of the best ways that both as staff and council that we can help our local businesses. So as you can see, what I've put forward for you in our recommendation is talking around an MOU with our CBA. And what that does is, one, somewhat selfishly makes my life a lot easier. It gives us some good parameters on how we can communicate with each other. It also is a good way of managing expectations about how we can best support a CBA and what a CBA can expect from their municipality. And it really kind of will lay out that framework and allow us to simply just move forward and work on things rather than trying to figure out the relationship of how it's done. In the last committee of the whole, we brought some ideas forward. The CBA had asked for some things over Christmas, the tent in Village Square and things like that. And then as part of accepting that letter on behalf of the CBA, council directed staff to come back with some options on how we can partner with them moving forward. And so that would be all encompassed within this MOU. As you know, the CBA utilized $4,000 in grant and aid funding last year to get themselves off the ground. And that is really the result of that investment is the work that we see now. They're a formed non-for-profit society with a board, an operating board. They're now up to 80 members, and that's 80 businesses, which is nearly half our business licenses in our community. And they've really, when we started talking about this, it was about a BIA, and they've really kind of embraced that the BI model may not work for them right now, but certainly a community and a business organization is really important. So I applaud their efforts. They, aside from that 4,000 of grant and aid funding, they're largely self-funded through their own membership drive. And so they're charging membership. You know, and much different than a BA, you have both brick and mortar businesses, established businesses like the Update Company and some industrial customers, but we have a lot of home-based businesses as well that are participating as members of the CBA. So it makes it really important that that CBA be cognizant of the different types of membership interests they have. And so it's not all about the downtown core, it's not all about events, but there's other businesses that may be looking for other different types of supports through their membership to this organization. So again, how can we support them provide that value to the rest of the community and to our small businesses? So you can see here, there's a couple of, especially over Christmas, the Love Cumberland brand, which is the hashtag, which is very prominent. We included it on our COVID signs as you drive into town. It's spray painted on some of our paneled up development lots. It's become, I know our businesses use it. It's becoming a very quick way to recognize the brand of Cumberland. You know, they've created a downtown map resource with the help of Rome Media, of course. They've done taken over with the social distancing messaging in the downtown core, creating some signs of their own. That tent in Village Square was an initiative brought forward by them. And they've worked really hard just to make sure their collective mandate policy with masks was a nice step collectively to know that when you come to Cumberland, all businesses expect you to behave a certain way. Hi, Charlie. And so in order to help them kind of move these initiatives forward, I want to be able to support them more. And I think an MOU between us and them would help them in that way. I have some ideas and areas. I also want to acknowledge that a lot of these conversations have had with the CBA, but we haven't agreed on anything. These are just areas. I think I'm very cognizant always of CBA is made up of small business owners. I want to put small achievable goals in front of them. And so breaking it up like this is just kind of compartments that we can start that conversation of how that works. Communication, really importantly, that internal communication process. How do I talk to them? How do they talk to me? They're a big organization. They're going to have different interests, and rightfully so. There's going to be different members of that organization. VIG looking after events, and Kirsten Warner's been very good helping them maneuver through the inside of the internal support systems with government agencies and stuff like that. There's others that are focused, like Melissa Resky, on supporting the non-for-profit BA as itself. So what are those communication protocols? Who do I talk to about what? Right now, we're kind of talking as a group, which is really good, but we can work on that. And external, when are the times when our interests align and I can provide some of that marketing support to them? Down the road, if we have things like a communication plan and we're using social media off our economic development things, are there things that we can do? This website is a great opportunity for us to support the CBA. We're going to create a link in there. We're going to acknowledge the CBA within that website, because one of the things we're behind the success stories is one of the first things I acknowledge on that website. It's like success story right now. If you're still operating, you're a success. And calling some people success stories right now to me is not very good optics. And so we want to profile our businesses, and we want to acknowledge there's a wide variety and diversity of economic activity happening here, and you could too. And so one of the one we're working right now is a profile piece on that CBA, so they can be one of those first stories through our website. So that, to me, having a formified CBA is a huge piece for us to attract and growing and retaining businesses. So that external communication piece becomes really important. How do we support them in those types of efforts? One of the ideas, and this business supports resources is helping them with their membership drive, is them being able to offer value to their members. And what are the types of value that you can create to those diversity of members that we've talked about? What can you do for the cement company that you can do for the home-based business that satisfies them both? And quite often, those services to me is around those support services and making sense right now of what recovery benefits are available to you, or grants, or loans, or business development, or small business supports. Things that typically a chamber type organization that we don't have in our community could provide. The CBA could be a hub for that type of activity. You get a business license here, you're connected automatically to that CBA. Through that CBA, as an economic development officer, I could provide a lot of interesting things, the Innovation Island and the other types of business supports and accelerators we can bring to them. So can we help situate them like that and provide a little bit of value to the businesses in the greater community, which drives them as members back to the CBA? At community events, I would really like to simplify this stuff for our CBA. It was amazing how quickly the Village Square idea came together at Christmas time. We were fortunate enough to have us involved with the CBA who's been through these processes, and he's like, every time I got to come, I've got to fill out a new application. I got to make that same drawing again. You know, I think Village Square is the type of space where we could probably have some sort of streamlined process for them, that they have access to this square. They know what it's about, partnering with someone like the Empire Event Society, making sure that insurance is there. Well, maybe we don't need to go through a whole long line of permitting process with the CBA when they want access to Village Square. And it's simply something, as long as nobody else has it booked, we've got everything in place so that they can run an event to drive income for themselves or to create community benefit like they already do. But I don't think we need to go through, again, a whole permitting process, fill out another application, pay another $200. I think we could streamline that for them and provide Village Square or other places as a resource to them to help their business as a business association. And so I'd like to see that kind of stuff be involved within an MOU, especially with stuff with the seasonal holidays too. When we get to Christmas, like the MOU will have a groundwork so that we know we start talking in October about events and have an understanding of what the runway is, both for us as staff and the CBA need to be able to partner meaningfully on these events. And when we partner on events and how the share of the responsibility that goes along with it is divided. Secondly, and lastly on this, what I have is funding support. And I will acknowledge I haven't had wholesome conversations with staff about this, notably our Chief Financial Officer, but thinking about a means to drive some operating revenue towards our CBA. And so as we know, organizations like this, their only way to generate income is through membership, through events. If they're a BIA, we would create a service area around the downtown core or some part of town. All the commercial buildings in that area would be increased in additional tax, which then would be returned to the CBA. I would like to, and I'm going to be looking into our licensing process, particularly on the back end of our business license renewals. Is there an opportunity there to carve some of that revenue out and return it to the CBA in a form of a grant? This money be returned to them in the form of a grant with an agreement on how that money is spent, notably something like being a business support and resource center or hiring an executive director to look after your interests. Here's some seed money to start you operating every year, but you have to, through an agreement, that makes sure that money reaches all the businesses in our community. And much like a BIA tax, this is money that they're paying to us as their business license that's being returned to them. So one, I need to learn about the feasibility of it, but I see it as a mean. We have 200 business licenses in our community. I know we generate about $27,000 to $30,000 a year through business licensing. With the renewals, we charge them the licensing fee of $110, which through my report at the last committee of the whole is the cost of administering that license when we get an application. But we don't do that exercise when it comes time for renewal. We don't renew a whole other application again. We simply do a transaction. So I'm going to see if there's other ways that we could, 200 business licenses a year that are renewed, $50 a license kickback, that's $10,000 in operating fund that we can potentially put into the CBA. So looking at the feasibility, the legalities of that kind of is something that the CBA and I are talking about and looking into. And that's the type of thing an MOU might be involved with is seeing things like that. So how can we support them financially? How can we support them through their community events, simplifying that, providing them with a space like Village Square where they can exercise their business practices, maybe generate some income, do some community events. How can we support them in becoming a place that supports other businesses? So one, businesses agree to kick over part of their licensing fee and pay their membership fee. So creating value for businesses in town through our CBA. And then again, how do we just communicate between the CBA and ourselves as village staff and making sure that is efficient as possible so the relationship's not getting in the way of doing our work. So.
Okay, Kaylin, are you open to questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, Councillor Kettler.
Oh, do I have to think of a question now?
Or a comment?
No, I think it's great. This has been, I think something that council has been wanting for a really long time. It took a long time to get legs, and I think, we have to give you credit as economic development officer for helping this along. I think it's really important to have a group that we can communicate with because, it's very hard for council to help individual businesses, but if they can speak with that collective voice, it's much easier for us to communicate with and to help with funding support or to talk to upper levels of government about. So yeah, I'm really happy to see the association. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cutler. Sorry, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge is one of the things in my report I didn't talk about is the communication with your business community and council itself. And our last committee of the whole, you referred the business license report to them. And so this kind of communication process is happening as well. And one of the best things that we can do for our businesses supporting them is making sure that line of communication between our businesses through ourselves to those bigger governments that are providing supports is good. And the CBA and the agreement on how we communicate will be a big support for that. It's making sure that when we're talking to our MPs and our MLAs that we really know what our businesses need.
Okay, Councillor Sproul.
Well, again, I'm very pleased to see all this work and cooperation between the village and the business community. And they seem to be working really hard we have the same interests, of course, in keeping our village safe. I would really like to support them in whatever way we can, and I think that's talked of later on in the agenda. So what can I say? Excellence again.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yep, this is just the good news meeting.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. But just over this last year, I mean, just living here, it's very obvious to see what kind of energy that the business community and the ECDEV officer have put in, and it's really paying off. We mentioned a couple times the tents over Christmas. I was in there a couple times and I've seen people using it, and it really just sort of, it's just a great way to just get people together in this kind of weird situation that we're in. And yeah, just the MOU moving forward is just going to solidify that partnership even more. So I'm wholly.
Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Kaylin, for bringing this forward. I think the membership numbers speak to the pent-up demand for this kind of association and a collective voice for the business community in Cumberland, and the strength of what is at this point a very small board of directors moving this nonprofit forward, and what they've been able to accomplish during a pandemic while keeping their businesses alive is pretty astounding. So I have all the faith in the world in their capacity to be a really great conduit between the village and the business community, and also as a sort of conduit between other stakeholders in the region. So Community Futures and Innovation Island and Tourism Vancouver Island and all the other people that businesses could and should be talking to, and providing support to the business community to help scale up businesses as needed. They've got a bunch of home-based businesses. Maybe those businesses need to move into larger spaces. So being that support and also giving us that feedback of what our business community is needing. Do they need more commercial space? Do they need bigger commercial space, smaller commercial space? What is it? And then, like you say, the advocacy to other levels of government for the supports that they do need, whether it's pandemic related or post-pandemic related. So yeah, I'm super excited about this, and I also agree that it's really important for us to get them some core funding so that they can hire someone to do some of the work that they are right now doing on a volunteer basis while they're running their businesses. So thank you for all your work on this.
No, and thank you. I appreciate that my council gets it. One of the things you acknowledge with the CBA that's not in here is that we are trying our best as a non-for-profit organization made up of people that are running full-time businesses and families. So we've connected them, that's not in this report, but we've connected them with like Scale Collaborative and Hive Consultancy. Lee Heron has been good, and just helping them hold their hand, give them a sounding board as a problem, you know. We're trying to support the business continuity of our businesses, but we're also trying to support the continuity of this organization. And so we're doing kind of both at both ends. And so again, recognizing their limited capacity, putting measurable, small, incremental steps in front of them. I've been very clear that I'm not going to rush them through this process. We're going to get this. And right now we've got a board, we've got a means to communicate with each other well. Let's give them the strength that they need to grow on their own time, and then we'll get there.
Thank you very much, Kaylin. It's been really nice to hear this. This has been in the works for many years, ever since the Cumberland Chamber of Commerce was down, and there's been different things brought forward, but it finally came together. So thank you for doing that and stepping it up and bringing them all together for them to know what they really wanted to do. That was the important part, because there for a while, they really didn't know which direction they wanted to go. So you made it possible for them to do this. So thank you very much.
No,
and I've heard so many positive comments about the Christmas and the tents. And it was really a pleasure to be able to provide that to them and for everybody else. It was very nice. And their additional of their lights at Christmas, nice addition.
Yep, and that's partnership with the community school and the CBA. And so the opportunities here are endless on how we kind of cross-pollinate these types of relationships. And for a community, I've always said on Fast on the Grow, they're an important voice to have as far as of what our values are and what we want to receive from how we grow. So I'm looking forward to it. It's very good.
And nice to see people stepping up. Yeah. Because for a long time we didn't have that. So it's really nice. And people love things that are working good.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, from the very beginning, you know, through our strategy, when we developed the strategy, a BIA was a big part of that strategy. But even in the conversation of the people attending is do we have time and energy to go through this again? And I think we just need to be patient and supportive and not put any expectations on when this gets done. This is not our thing. This is theirs. We just need to support them.
Absolutely. Yes, Councillor Brown.
Sorry, I just have one more follow-up. I think a big piece of the MOU that needs to be very clear is where the boundaries of influence on, like when we're referring something, so that they're not wasting a bunch of time giving us direction on stuff that's not, whether or not in our control or not in their sphere of influence. So making sure that whoever needs to be involved with that conversation is involved with that conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay.
And likewise, I've asked for your input here. If there's things that you haven't mentioned today that you come across, again, this MOU is going to be a work in progress. So happy to give updates, happy to receive feedback at any time.
We will expect updates.
All right.
But there is a motion there that somebody'd like to read out.
Sure, I'll move the committee recommend that council direct staff to work with the Cumberland Business Association towards a memorandum of understanding between the Village of Cumberland and the CBA, and to bring a draft agreement to council for review and recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next, the committee received the conference attendance report.
Receipt.
Second. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Council. So with COVID continuing to have impacts on conferences and other events that council members attend, we thought we'd bring forward this report to give council some options and flexibility on the budget that you have this year for conferences. One of those, for example, one of the changes, I think the local government leadership academy, that's a forum that usually takes place in Richmond, and the cost for a council member to attend would be upward of $3,000 this year. The registration is $200 and there's no travel associated with it. So that shows a bit of the savings that's resulting from COVID. We know that AVICC is going to be held virtually, so there's a bit of savings in that. What we're proposing is that each member have flexibility to spend up to $1,000 from any cost savings, and that member can spend it on training or education or events or forums. What we'll do is we can track savings for each members, and members can choose to attend any events or forums that they choose to do, and not have to ask permission of council. And but we do ask that that you report it out during your monthly reports to council. Secondly, in the report, there's also the option to make permanent change to the council policy on conferences if council likes the idea of having that flexibility of choosing what forums you attend without having to ask permission of council. It would just apply to the events that happen locally, and you're permitted one Central North Vancouver Island forum, and that's for budgetary reasons, of course, because they're less costly. So if you like the idea of having the flexibility of just choosing your own, we can make a permanent change to the council policy. And we also did suggest some maximum values with that. But one thing to keep in mind is that if council members maximize the availability of all the conferences they could attend, we would very likely go over budget each year. You guys have been really good at creating cost savings by traveling together, or maybe not going to every conference, but the budget is at $29,000, doesn't give a lot of room anymore like it used to, because the hotel are very expensive. They've gone up significantly. So if council continues to go to a lot of events and take advantage of a lot of learning opportunities moving forward, we really have to look at increasing the budget for 2022. So we're just looking for feedback on those the two items, the flexibility for this year, and whether you'd like to have a permanent change to your policy moving forward.
Councillor Sproul?
Well, I think this is a good way to resolve the fact that we do have the extra money because of this method of having meetings and conferences. And I think I support both these recommendations, and I'm just prepared to use whatever is allotted to me. I will use it. I don't have to go to all the conferences. So when it works, I would like to do that.
Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, I'll support both the changes.
Okay, Councillor Brown?
Yes, thank you so much for these revisions. I feel like it gives us a lot more freedom to attend the things that are of interest to us, and to attend a lot more things since we never leave our houses. And so I'm happy to support both. I know you have it in here somewhere, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So if we don't use our budget, the budget is only good for 1 year. It doesn't roll over. Okay. And I'm hoping that maybe hotel prices will go down, since they'll be wanting to attract people, maybe once we are allowed to go places. But yes, I think we do need to increase the budget in order for people to attend.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I think the amount is reasonable. While everything is online. I think we do need to increase future budgets. While I think the online thing will probably stick for some things, I think it'll be really important for us to start attending conferences again. I think lots of important conversations happen outside, when you're having coffee or meals with people, and I think that's been something that's missing, and certainly in this new term for new councillors, they don't get to speak to other elected officials outside of their region, and I think that's a real deficit for them in their learning, because we can you know, there's so many experiences out there, and you could, you know, that's really how you find out at these conferences about, you know, the challenges that other counselors are having, how they've overcome those, and you know, really important learnings that happen there. So I do think we need to increase that budget. I know when Councillor Sullivan and I were first elected, there was the Young Elected Officials Network, YON, and that was really awesome to be connected in that way, and that so every conference, you know, that group would meet as a subgroup, and it was a great way to make connections and friends, and I hope that counselors, you know, in this term get that opportunity as well.
Okay. Yes, I support both. I think it's a lot less work. I know webinar conferences, they'll come up and it's like you have so much time to put your name forward, and it's been very difficult to make it onto a council agenda, and that's time consuming also for staff and for us. So I think this will make it much easier. The only one question I have is, if we do not use the money that is allotted to us, can we give it to another councillor?
I think it's up to council as a whole to do that. I think you'd want to bring that one back to the table.
Okay, that's fine. And it's really interesting because I got my first invitation to go to the mayor's LGLA, and it's in person in Richmond. And I was to let them know if I'd attend, and I am not attending. I'm not going to Richmond at this time. I think I will wait till there's more people vaccinated. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, so would somebody like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion. The committee recommend that council allocate $1,000 to each councillor and $1,500 to the mayor from any conference savings in 2021 for that member to use at their discretion for professional development, conferences or forums in 2021. And further, that the committee recommend that council amend the council conference policy to remove subsection 1 and add maximum expenditures in section 3, and to direct staff to bring forward an increase in the council travel and conference budget for 2022.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Next. That the committee receive Village of Cumberland complaint policy report.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Did we do both of the recommendations under the conference attendance? Did I miss that?
No, yes, she did.
Thanks.
Oh, did she, Rachel? Did you do both? Yeah, I thought you did. Yes, you did. It's always wise to check. Next.
Not with me.
Clayton.
Hello, Council. Thank you. So before you, there's a report relating to, and I'll just start by saying, I just want to clarify on the subject. It's actually not Village of Cumberland complaint policy. It should be, and it's my error, and in this Village of Cumberland complaint handling policy. So it's just in relation to how complaints are handled within the organization. So what you have before you here is just a report for the committee here to consider the directing staff to develop a policy and procedures relating to how we manage and handle complaints. And so what was included in this report was an attachment. Back in December, the ombudsperson did issue a complaint handling guide. And this guide is one that was distributed to all local governments within the province as some best practices in ways of how public organizations can handle complaints. And so in a review of that, staff felt that it would be timely for us to review and update our complaint handling processes. And specifically, really just kind of look at the key aspects about making sure that our processes are accessible, fair, person-focused, and responsive. And there's some training and education that we would also want to do. So today was just an opportunity to present this to the committee here. And if the committee wishes recommending to council, we'd be happy to come back with a report and a draft policy. If there's any questions.
We'll go around the table and Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, that's a pretty comprehensive complaint ombudsperson report. I support the policy moving forward.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
Yes, thank you so much, Clayton, for bringing this forward. I think it'll be a great addition for both staff and council. And I just think a clear, transparent, equitable process will go a long way to avoiding problems in the future. So yeah, I look forward to working on a policy.
Okay, Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, thank you for this. I think it's really important. I think when you have a policy like this in place, you end up giving the public a better experience, especially like an example is the trauma-informed complaint system. So you just have sort of well-trained staff, and having that staff with that training, you also protect the staff. You protect them from legal issues, and you protect them from harassment, because they have this policy to fall back on. So I think it's really, really great. Thank you.
Councillor Spruill?
Yes, I'm really happy to see this here. It's a step-by-step walk-through procedure to deal with complaints. And if you can't stop it at tier 1, what happens at tier 2? So there's kind of almost an answer for every stage of how this goes. And I'm thinking how fortunate that we have a new position in the office and a new sort of area that's a little bit more private, so that whether it be that person that we've just hired or another member of staff, there'll be a place where people can be more discreet in dealing with complaints with the public, because it's such a small office and it needs a way to handle this discreetly. So now I'm very pleased to see it.
And I will say the same. I think it's appropriate timing. I think sometimes complaints have fallen through the wayside, not meaning to, but it does happen. And I think this is a way of protecting us so that that doesn't happen. But I also like the different categories in the process and what they're dealing with, because it's not only the person that's in complaining, it's the staff person and their reaction, and then how they handle the situation. And you usually dealing with people that have very different reactions, and you have to be able to know how to work with people, and it can be a challenge at times. So thank you very much for bringing this forward. Is there any thought to who that not the person, but the position would be taking this on?
In the sense of preparing the policy, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking at the person right here. So yeah, no, you know what, the nice thing about the guide here, it is fairly straightforward in the sense of developing it. I should mention two things. One is that currently we do have a communication policy. So it's not that we have been without, but it just doesn't, with this new recommendations, this is a chance to make it a little bit more both customer focused, but also empowering staff to be able to deal with these not only complaints, but I look at it as term as feedback. There's times for it may not just be a complaint, but feedback. And so this is something that I think, like Councillor Spruill mentioned, with our front reception position, this will give an opportunity for even that person to be empowered to be able to actually manage and deal with complaints that are they're quick to resolve right there. So
very good. Okay, so there is a motion there. Someone like to read the motion?
When
3.5.
I'll move that the committee recommend the council direct staff to develop a Village of Cumberland complaint policy and staff to report back to council with the draft policy and procedures for council's consideration.
Seconder? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, that the committee receive the community grant program update. Changes.
Move receipt.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Thanks, Council. So we're bringing this report. This is the time of the year that we offer the community grant program to the community, and we thought we'd bring this back to council to see to propose some new ideas. Basically, as many of you know, the grant program sort of evolved from the transition out of waiving parks and rec fees initially, and we've been slowly sort of shifting the program, and it's had many iterations since 2012. We've looked at what council has done in the past few years, including a lot of the things we've talked about tonight: the economic development strategy, the service that's now available. Council has established long-term funding agreements for operating funding for some community groups, which includes the Empire Event Society, who can provide insurance for community events to smaller organizations that don't have that capacity to do that. We also looked at council's new strategic plan last year, which really had a bit of a shift and identified a number of priorities within the community. And I meant to actually attach that to my report, but I neglected to do so. So I can actually just remind council here of those priorities. I'll just bring up the screen for a second. So these are some of the priorities in the plan, and council talks about reinforcing those priorities through collaborative community and regional partnerships. So and there's things like the food security, heritage, accessibility, climate change, mitigation and adaptation, and cultural opportunities, and housing. So those are a lot of things that we've heard about tonight in the Green Cumberland presentation and the economic development presentation. So we're proposing a few ideas here and hoping to get some feedback. The first is to, in the purpose of the program, the key change here would be to remove the grant program benefit businesses. And that's been in the program since it started in 2012, and it might be a time to do that with all the economic development initiatives and really focus on benefits to residents. The second suggestion is to update the eligibility guidelines to include those council priorities that we just talked about, to really focus in community groups on things to start up maybe some kind of programming or service that the council has identified there. The third suggestion is to perhaps remove eligibility for special events. So this one might be a bit of a bigger step for council, but we just wanted to throw it out there and see what you thought. Events, the grant program draws a lot of applications from events typically. Cumberland has a lot of events. So that's something that I'd like to hear more from council about, because some events are definitely community based and have a lot of benefit for community. But it's exactly how you want to support those events. I think it would be good to hear back from you. We have suggested if there's, you could really focus supportive events towards community benefit or music and arts, might be something that you'd like to look at. There's 3 more suggestions there in the report. The next one talks about the minimum application amount. We changed it to $1,000 to get more substantial applications, and it also reduces staff time to administer because you tend to get less applications for the smaller ones. We just wanted more substantial programs to come out of this. So Currently, it's at $1,000. Council can choose to increase that even more. See, last year, Council approved only 2 grants, one for $6,000 and one for $4,000 to really get some programs going. The next item for feedback is whether there's any particular programs or services that Council really wants to support and draw into this program to fund in coming years. And the last item is whether, once these guidelines are established, Council would like to explore the option of the Community Foundation administering the grant program. I think it's been suggested before, so we just didn't want to lose that in the discussion. So, and the report does also mention the COVID Safe Restart funding. There is opportunity for Council to allocate some of the funds that were received earlier this year for core programs and vulnerable services for vulnerable people, and we'll be bringing back a report with those opportunities at a different time. This would be best if this discussion was with a $10,000 grant program. So just looking for some feedback on which direction Council would like to go on this.
Okay, Councillor Brown, you're first.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. I understand the challenge of this program and trying to find a fair and equitable way to support our community organization. So I appreciate the work that's gone into this. So yes, I definitely support the new direction to align with our strategic priorities. I think we should and could be using this grant money to reach our most vulnerable people, if we can in any way. And I also truly believe in the importance of us partnering with nonprofits in the community to extend the capacity of the village because they do some really great work. And so, yeah, I think we should definitely pull the support to the CBA or the business community should be a separate thing. It shouldn't necessarily run through the grant program. My concern with removing the special events is that sometimes special events are fundraisers that then fund programs. So I'm not sure if there's a way for us to word that so that we can support those events that are then going to generate funds that will reach our strategic priorities or something. I would also like to see, I think we have some core nonprofits in the village, you know, CC, all the CCs, so CCFS and CCSS and CVA, the arts and culture. I think they're not a CC actually, the arts and culture group and the event society, but that's kind of it. And I feel like we could use some more because there's a lot of work that could be done. So finding a way to encourage those, either new, maybe funding for, you know, exploration of a new a nonprofit, or like we did with the CBA, or social enterprise. So seed funding for them to maybe do planning or something. I think that would be really valuable. And my only other thing, I believe, is that I would really like to keep this with us as a village during it. I understand the level of work, but I think we are uniquely positioned to understand the needs of our community and that they can change rapidly, as we've seen. And I very much appreciate the work of the Comox Valley Foundation. I think they supported some really great initiatives, including the Good Food Box multiple times in our community. So not to take away from that, but just that I think we are in a better position to understand the needs of our community in a deeper way. And I think keeping it in-house also allows us the flexibility to change it on a dime should something come up.
Councillor Kettler.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot. So I guess I'll just go through them one by one. So the number one, which was about whether to fund businesses or not. I think there was always an issue with funding an individual business. Now that we have a CBA, I think that's different. But in the process, as Councillor Brown said, of going through an MOU, we might end up with a completely different agreement with them. So again, yeah, I'm not sure if it should be funded through this grant program or separately. Number two, the eligibility guidelines. Yes, absolutely. I think that we should be including our strategic priorities in it. The strategic priorities are something that, the community helps us develop. It's the direction we want to go. This is, the community's money. So, that's what it should be funding. Absolutely. So I'm all for that. Number three, I'm not sure about taking money away from events. Sometimes we give in kind, and would it also apply to those, like letting an event use our bleachers or something like that? Would we not be allowed to do that if we excluded them? That, to me, it might end up posing some problems for us wanting to help some events in our community.
What council did over the years with the not-for-profit events is the fees bylaw has a subsidized rate for not-for-profits for rec facilities and parks, and that was started, I think, at the beginning of this program to transition out of waiving fees altogether. So and we eliminated the in-kind. It was too much of a challenge to administer. So the program actually gives the cash, and they use the cash to pay the village for those parks and rec services at that subsidized rate. So one thing to note that last year that we did change it, so it's just one-time special projects or services and seed funding and that applied to events as well. So it wasn't intended to be operating funding for events, like ongoing. It was just to start a new event or a special program, an event.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me, that we wouldn't want to pay ongoing operating for anyone. Okay, so number four, I think the increase of the minimum application amount is good. We can always reduce the amount of work on staff, which is good. Number five, I think we should be partnering as much as we can with nonprofits. So I'm not sure what feedback you're looking for with number five specifically, but I would encourage us to partner with them.
If there's any particular service, like affordable housing or more accessibility, or if there's one out of those strategic planning priorities, if there was one in particular that council members really saw as important and something that not-for-profits could offer. I think that's what I'm sort of, I mean, you might not have any, but you might have some great ideas. So I thought I'd throw that out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to think on that one a little more then. And number six, I think there's pros and cons to letting the community foundation administer the program. We do this through the regional district with some of our grants, and they do really well. I think a pro is that, as we've seen, we have many changes. Like, as you said, it's an iterative process, and every year we change our eligibility and funding requirements. So I think that's a difficult thing for people to try and navigate. And community foundation's very solid with their expectations and their eligibility. So that's sort of one bonus, I think, of going with them. Of course, the downside, as Councillor Brown had mentioned, is that we lose some of that flexibility and and you know, that discretion that we currently have. So so I'm not sure about that part. Thanks.
Councillor Spruill.
Well, I really don't have a lot different to say from the rest of council. There's a lot of things to think about. I think that given that the recommendation is to align, tie the eligibility with our strategic priorities, means that it would be easier if we didn't look at the option of the Comox Valley Community Foundation. I'm not sure if they would be able to tie in the funding to our priorities, and I think that's more important to me. And I'm not sure about the special events, because it's true that some special events can lead to fundraising for an organization that could be modeled on our priorities. But here it says now on number 3, the Cumberland Event Society, with having an annual funding agreement, could provide umbrella liability insurance coverage for smaller organizations for community-based events, and staff is encouraging organizations to take advantage of this service from the Cumberland Event Society. So that's an option for somebody wanting to organize a special event. And yeah, I forgot what the other ones were. Anyway, more or less, I agree with the rest of council, and the minimum application, fine. I think we'll keep to that. So, not much else to say. Yeah, and I'm not sure how we're going to be involved with the CVA. I'm sure we haven't talked about that in detail, but when we have explored the memorandum of understanding, maybe there's some way that we can tie them in. Not sure.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I also don't have much more new stuff to add. I really like the number 1, going back to a residential focus, especially with the COVID times and stuff. It's nice to start focusing on just the residents rather than bringing people in. I think number 2 is great. It's a great idea with the guidelines. For number 3, I'm with Councillor Kettler. I'm not sure how I feel. I know that this program, Kettler is just, and by Rachel, has just changed so many times over the year. I do feel for the staff, and just seems like it's been a difficult last couple of years with all the changes and the administration that they have to go through. So I'd really like to relieve them of some of that. The $1,000 is number 4. I think we could raise that or not. I don't know. It would just seem to be specific to what we're looking at. And Rachel, you had mentioned music and arts funding earlier in the report, but I don't know if that's what I'd like to see supported, is our music and arts community, which is just definitely taking the biggest hit, I think, during all this time. And I'd support keeping it in-house as well with number 6 for all the reasons mentioned by the councillors.
Thank you very much, everybody. Oh, Councillor Brown, you had something else you wanted to add?
Yes, I missed the question. Was there specific things that you wanted to support? So I just wanted to add a couple of ideas. One, the Good Food Box, I think, is a very valuable service that has started, and I would really, really encourage us to continue to support that in whatever way we can. I note in several places in this agenda, the Community Housing Association is mentioned and an MOU with them. I think they could use some support in capacity building. And similarly, I think the Cumberland Arts and Culture Society could potentially use some support in capacity building or strategic planning, something like that, to help support arts and culture in the community.
I'm okay with everything that everybody has said. I really was pleased that we changed our direction when COVID hit and supported the two groups that we did support in the time of their need. I also know that nonprofits have been really hit hard through COVID, and the gaming money virtually stopped. And it set really hard things for them to do because they had plans. Unfortunately, some of them, the plans had to be changed because of COVID, and they didn't require that money. But when they start back up and things, they're still going to be in that position. And I know there's lots of things out there that people can get into, but it makes it very difficult if they're spending their whole time writing for grants. And so they need that support from us. The reason I had talked about the Comox Valley Community Foundation was they are a huge supporter of things in Cumberland, the museum, the school, recreation. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to give them the whole 10,000 at the time, but COVID proved to me not to. But could we not look at maybe just giving them $1,000 a year to add to the pot? We already made a commitment years back and added, and that money is growing every year. And we're recognized for that in the community when they do their handouts. Cumberland was a very strong supporter to them when they first started. So I know it wouldn't be a lot of money for $1,000 every year, but it would add up over time. Yes.
No.
Do you mean $1,000 to their investment fund that then is generating revenue for them? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
would support that.
Yeah.
Like
Because
comes back.
that money comes back to us
Yeah.
with the amount of grants they give out. And I think it's a sign of that we recognize what they do for the village.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be my only one. And I certainly support the food share program, and the CCSS and all the other programs that are out there. I know they're having difficult times. Okay. So do you have enough information, Rachel, or is there something we didn't answer?
Could I ask, with the suggestion for the $1,000 to the community foundation, if that would come out of this budget, so the grant budget would be reduced to 9,000? Okay.
We found another 1,000 somewhere else.
Yeah, do we?
Maybe next year. It's not in this year's budget.
Next year.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So we can do this next year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think there wasn't a lot of certainty about the special events. Could we perhaps frame it if an event relates to one of those strategic priorities, like arts and culture? Maybe that would be a good fit, because I think the special events are drawn to this, and you often get overwhelmed with applications for special events, and it makes it really challenging to make decisions, especially when you have, it's not so much about reducing work for staff, but it's about making decisions easier for council and making more meaningful contributions out of this program. So if there were
could we add that it have an ongoing special event can apply, but it has to be something new that they haven't done before?
Yep, we could do that. And we've had that for the past few years, and it hasn't, even though you put it in there, it's often not really
But it could be the difference. Yeah, it could be the difference between two. It's something that is brand new, that is going to work for the community even more than what they already do.
Would council like to focus on events that focus on Cumberland residents rather than the tourism piece?
Yeah, I agree.
Include that. Okay.
Yeah,
that's helpful. Okay, I think that's great.
That goes into the newness.
Yeah, and if it helps reduce staff administration time, I'd be happy with doubling the 1,000 to 2,000 as a minimum. Would that be helpful?
I like that idea myself, going to 2,000.
I mean, you can't get much for $1,000 anyway.
No. I actually had written it down on my paper to increase it to 2,000.
That's a good idea.
That's great. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
you.
Next, the committee received the Civic Facilities and Properties Review Report for discussion.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. So what the report I have before the committee here, the intention here is this is, as council is aware, is one of the strategic priorities and action items that has been identified is for, I guess about a year or over a year ago, there was part of the previous strategic priorities talked about a facility review. And during the recent strategic planning session back in May, I say recent, but seems like yesterday, but it's a long time ago. Council gave direction to look at a bit more of a strategic look at the facility. So strategic properties, facilities, which includes facilities that are in place, possible future facilities such as public works. Parking was also included in that discussion there. So what I have before you here is just an outline of some scope that we are proposing would be part of an RFP that we would release out for interested consultants to submit proposal for. And the intent here is for not as much a completion of a condition assessment of the facilities. That's not really the intent, but more to look at what the existing lands and facilities and what the highest and best use for those in relation to the community needs. So both council's input and the community's input in relation to that. This is a very high level report, likely as what the intent here is to look at the entire municipality and what those future facilities, properties, what that might look like. Likely, what recommendation would be if there is, like, let's just use the public works, future public works site or future public works facility. This would be a concept of where that would look, where that would be, what the concept, what aspects would be part of that site. There would be a look at what the costs associated with there, and then also look at what other maybe options are to fund that. Is there I mean, the existing site right now is a fairly large one. Maybe there's a portion of that site that is disposed of that allows to pay for the development of the public works site. So all these aspects would be looked at as part of this review. And I've listed within the report here just some of the scope there. And this is, we also, as being an RFP, this would be kind of the high level scope that the village would be looking for, but we'd also be looking for any consultants if they have any examples or information that they think that would be valuable. That would be, be part of a consideration, because there are many municipalities that have done similar type of assessments and reviews. And so certainly we want to utilize their expertise in that area. Just see if there's anything else here. Yeah, so I won't go through the list that's on page 77, but there's 9 items there that are very general, but they would be areas that we would be looking to seek to be included in the final report there. So definitely, it's important to have an inventory of all land that's available. And reviewing existing reports or studies that are part of that. Most important part is some type of community needs assessment. This one I think we're going to have to, we would probably ask for different options really. Just, I mean, there's certainly different levels of consultation, how deep it being a high level. We certainly want to have some sort of consultation. We obviously are doing this during a period of time that's not easy to get people together. So, feedback that we received, there's a lot of good online tools that would be able to engage the community, surveys. There may be an open house or like was done in the fall. There are our village financial plan session where we were able to have some breakout sessions through Zoom. So there's some different options that we would look to consultants to proposing. And again, the hope would be to also have some high level concept plans and costing included in this. Yeah, and at the end of the day, have a strategic plan and some different recommendations that be able to move forward with, and have some priority areas that council can provide some direction on. So happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, I've been wanting this to come forward for a long time. We did have the condition assessment, I think it's a couple of years ago now, that basically told us that most of our buildings are well past their life. So we know that we have a big deficit as far as our buildings go. And I think, you're talking about, not really thinking about or involving the condition assessment in this, but I think they really overlap quite significantly when we're talking about what's existing and highest and best use for that. I think we have to look at, well, this probably isn't going to exist for much longer. So really start to plan how we're going to meet our future needs with our buildings. It's great that we're doing the office upgrades that we're doing now, but we know that our civic building is not in good shape, and that we are a fast-growing community and therefore fast-growing staff. So we will need the space. I hate to go back to the fire hall, but I really feel that it could have been more just a fire hall, and if we had done sort of the planning that I hope we're going to do now before that probably could have been a mixed use building that would have solved more of our building issues than just the fire hall. It's big and beautiful, but I still would like to include that in our highest and best use, and maybe we can make it a mixed use building of sorts still. And the other consideration I wanted to add was, it was very timely for us to have Lister and Ben on, because as I was saying, with buildings, it does make up, a third of the greenhouse gas emissions for us. And so, building that fire hall, we're actually going to have quite a big greenhouse gas emission to make up for our corporate emissions. If we're going to be building more, if it's going to be another public works building or another civic building, we'll have those greenhouse gas emissions to compensate for. So green building into anything that we do in the future, and thinking about heat exchange, doing something geothermal, which I talked about before, but we have those lovely wormholes beneath us that from coal mining that we can tap into, and we have the dam, the micro hydro that we want to do. So ways that we can offset the buildings and the growth that we'll really run into here. So it wasn't really listed in the report about green building, and it wasn't something that was done for the fire hall. So I really would want to see that in the future for any new construction. Thanks.
Councillor Sproul.
Your worship, can I just sorry, real quickly, just thank you, Councillor Kettler. So definitely the facility assessment here would condition assessment, we would want to include that as part of the consideration. And one of the pieces definitely would, and that's probably where I should have expanded a little bit further, like best practices, and like you've mentioned, what is happening in the industry, especially for facility management and facility planning, and reviewing any sort of cost savings, both and environmental savings, in the sense of how we look at that. So we definitely want to consider both those, and I've made that note, so thank you.
Okay, now you're to Councillor Sproul.
Yeah, well, I look forward to having a review of all our studies so far. There's no doubt that our civic buildings, like our fire hall, has been a way undersized for the size of the growing community. It's not turning back; it's moving forward, and the condition of them, of each of the facilities, it's probably not the time to be, I mean, we can plan now, but as far as financing anything, I'm not sure where the funding would come from to do these things. But if we've reviewed everything and have a plan, then we'll be ready when we have some money to do some of this stuff.
That's sorry first.
Yeah, I'll let you.
That's actually a really great point, because one of the things is we know the numerous grant opportunities that we have seen come up recently, and we certainly hope that those continue, and we know that it is a normal cycle of that. But one of the things we hope at the end of the day is having a solid plan for our facilities, concept plans, costing, and that's something that we are lacking right now. And so it sometimes is really difficult for us to apply for these grants when we don't have that information. So this would be a tool that we want to make sure that at least we have enough information to put forward those sort of applications. So that's a great point for sure.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this report moving forward. I'm really looking forward to quantifying the public works lands. We acquired that, and it'd be nice to sort of start the ball rolling on seeing what kind of what we can just do with that land. As far as the municipal buildings, I know that throughout the last couple of years, some of the councillors have talked about our main village hall office and stuff, and just the future possibilities of how we're going to be able to afford to replace that building, i.e., having the offices on the bottom and maybe residential on top. So it's not a very popular conversation. It seems like tearing down old buildings and putting up new ones, but for us to be able to afford to build ourselves these facilities, we're going to have to look at some more creative solutions moving forward, such as those things with the residential on top. I mean, if we had rent coming in from our own buildings, that would be a nice revenue stream for the village. So hopefully this report can just look at some of those possibilities moving forward.
I'm waiting for you, Clayton.
That's a great comment, Councillor Sullivan. Yes, we will do that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think it's time appropriate to be doing this. I think we've held very firm to what we have, knowing that we didn't have the money at the time. And I think we're going to have to use a lot of innovation and a lot of transparency. And I know with a lot of people, council chambers and councils and staff is not a top priority. And so we're going to have to go along that road. And I think the fact that we're actually going to have a discussion with the consultant would be excellent good. We never had that with the last consultant that was brought on board. And that we do a good process so people understand what we have and what we need for the future. And I think that's really important to start that process. I don't like doing anything unless you have a plan. And it's a plan that the community is going to accept. So, yes. So there is a motion there.
I didn't get to speak yet.
Oh, did I miss you? How did I miss you?
It's okay. I've been fairly verbose already.
Oh,
today,
you were last. See,
but I do have thoughts. I'm also really excited to see this coming forward. Thank you, Clayton. And I very much appreciate your list of main goals on page 77, looking for opportunities for generating revenue, enhancing land values, creating opportunities for community and economic development, developing strategic plans and facilitating projects, and identifying partnership opportunities. I think there have been many conversations I've been in, particularly around housing, but also other facilities and shared use opportunities where I thought, if only we had the land that we could offer. And it's great that we were able to do that with the affordable housing, with our land transfer from BHA. So if we can find other opportunities in that way, I think that is super califragilistic. But I also wanted to make sure that we were looking for, I had several people over the summer while everyone was trying to grow food. Now that we're densifying and bringing apartment buildings into our downtown core, I think we need to start looking at community gardening spaces and the potential of adding water to some of our parks and allowing some food growing possibly happening. So making sure we cover that. And then just again, as Councillor Kettler mentioned, having Ben and Lister let us know that we are a 7.5 on the housing rate is terrifying. Quite frankly, I think we've become quite unaffordable in a really fast time frame, and we need to, if we want to keep some diversity and support artists and others in this community, we need to find some ways to provide housing, whether it's co-op or under market or whatever. So, and I also agree with the civic buildings and having that conversation. Thank you.
Okay, there is a motion there.
Well, we provide them with recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you want me to read. Okay. That the committee provide council with recommendations relating to the facilities and property strategic action plan project scope, and these outcomes and scope be included into the facilities and property strategic action plan. So I presume you got the list there.
Yes.
Yeah, a corporate officer has taken that, and I've got the notes as well. So this is very helpful for us to get this rolling. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That the committee received the quarterly report to council October, December 2020.
Move receipt.
All in favor? All in favor? Carried. Okay, you're still on, Clayton.
What's before the committee here is the quarterly update. I think at the end of the day, similar to the fall there, I'll just highlight that obviously this summary here for especially for the strategic priorities, even though it is quarterly, what we have done is we've compiled all of the updates for the entire 2020 there. So you will see in this report, the items that are shown as complete. Well, some of those may have been completed in the first or second quarter, but just as a summary of the entire year there. Moving forward into the next quarter, what we will do is we'll remove those items so that it's not showing as 2020, and we'll leave the items that are only complete in the actual quarter. But wanted to summarize the entire year's activities relating to strategic priorities and capital projects. So from the quarterly summary, there's a very short report there, but just the fact that it was a busy year. You add in, we've said it a few times, COVID and other activities, but it was, I have to say from a staff's perspective, I'm extremely proud of what the staff and working with council, getting the clear direction from council, being able to complete as many projects as we had during the such a challenging period of time there, and really a lot of unknowns there, and some things were delayed. Some things we had to adjust budgets for, and we came to council and got direction, and thank you for clear direction from council. But I think in general it is 2020 was with all the challenges from an organization, it was a success. I think that we were able to accomplish a lot. Certainly lots of things ahead of us still, and some of these challenges still continue. But in general terms, I think very positive year from I guess from a staff's perspective, where we talk about it as what some of those accomplishments, and when you look through the quarterly strategic updates, the number of projects that we've completed or are working through, that's different phases. It's pretty amazing, with all the things that have gone on, we've been able to accomplish that. So really, I'm here just to answer any questions, do my best. If I don't have an answer, I think we have a couple of the managers on that may, if they're available, to come in, and if not, we can get answers to council. So I'll just leave it open for answer any questions, comments.
Okay, I have one comment, and that is concerns on page 83. It's near the beginning. And if all council members would point out the page that they're reading from, that would be really appreciated. And it's talk about transportation assessment. And my question is about I know we had put forward to reducing the speed zone down to 30 kilometers, and we were going to postpone that until we actually did the traffic study. And I've received numerous letters and phone calls from people that would like us not to wait and to implement that. And I think it's really important that we do something, and we do it before this summer. I think that we have a tremendous amount of traffic in the summer months, on addition to what we already have. And I've also heard from a number of people where they've seen near misses of children being hit. And that really scares me, to think that people are driving that fast in our community, that there's been near misses for children. Children are children, and they will run out on the roads. And if you're doing 50 plus, there's no possibility of you stopping. And I would rather be on the side of being safe. We also have an awful lot of streets that do not have a sidewalk in this community, and that adds to the problem. People are known not to stop at stop signs. That's not a problem here. It's a problem here. It's a problem in all of British Columbia, unfortunately. People are speeding. They're not following the roads. The police cannot be everywhere. And I think it's very unfortunate. So I would like council to implement a 30-kilometer zone in the residential areas in Cumberland, probably from Hope Road to Alberston Road. Hope Road coming into town, and Alberston on the Cumberland-Royston side. And I think it's important that we do the Lake Park Road, because of the fact of the amount of traffic on that road, from the people parking on the sides and the motorhomes and trailers and boats that go out the lake. That road is very narrow and very windy, and I think we need to take this on. My understanding is, reading what the government says, is that we can lower it in residential areas. Well, this is all residential areas, as far as I'm concerned. So, but I'm not sure what we exactly have to do to get this through. That's my thing. I know they're doing it in other communities. They're doing it in Campbell River. There's quite a few down the island where they're doing it. So I think it's something, but I'd like to hear from the rest of council also. So is there anybody else that would like? Yes, Councillor Spruill.
Oh, I just want to say it's maddening that with this awful weather and slush everywhere, people are actually driving faster. And I've got a little kid in each hand, and people are just not slowing down. So, I go and make signals to them. If I catch people being good, I put my thumbs up. But it's really unfortunate that people seem to feel compelled. It's not even summer to go that fast. So I really welcome this to move ahead right through Cumberland, those delineations that you gave then.
Any Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I agree that a 30-kilometer zone is appropriate within the downtown core for sure. I know we all got an email about a terrifying accident that happened on Kendall on Thursday night. which very well could have impacted a child. The car hit the vehicle in the driveway and moved it 8 feet across the lawn. So that is just not, it's just too scary. And we've heard from that neighborhood forever about the issues with traffic. So while I agree with the 30-kilometer zone, I also understand that putting a 30-kilometer sign is not going to stop people from speeding. And so I think that I think staff is on the right track of gathering on top of the 30-kilometer zone, gathering information on different ways we can do traffic calming within the village, including perhaps having a sign at the entrance to the village that says, we are a slow community. We drive slow. There's people all over the roads. Expect people in your road. There's no sidewalks. Or, you know, that's obviously not the right language, but you get my meaning, that we need some public education, and then we also need some implementing some traffic calming measures on our streets, whether they're speed bumps or bump outs or bigger trees or whatever that looks like. There's lots of ideas about how to slow people down in a real way outside of the 30-kilometer zone, in addition to the 30-kilometer zone.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I agree. I like the idea of the basically blanket 30-kilometer zone. Yeah, there's constant complaints from the Kendall residents, and I see it regularly as well. Speeding and going through stop signs, and obviously, as you know, Coal Valley Estates builds out, that pressure will just increase. Currently at that corner where the big hill on Kendall comes down, it's there's Maple Street, or just the beginning of Maple Street, because it doesn't actually connect. But once that development goes in, there'll be a connecting road. Maybe we consider putting a stop sign there, a 3-way stop. And I think, yeah, there's lots of ways that we can handle it. And I did like Councillor Brown's idea of, you know, sort of, you know, making it a community sort of identity. Like, you know, you drive into Cumberland, you see a sign that says, "You're now on island time, slow down," you know, like something like that, you know, make it quirky. But yeah, let people know that they need to slow down, and we can do, I think, a little bit more around the school and around our park with traffic calming measures. I know, you know, other communities have all sorts of things that you can put, you know, bendable indicators right in the middle of the road, right? So I think there's lots of things that we can do in those specific areas to help protect children. But I'm all for all those measures. Thanks.
Councillor Sullivan?
Just what Councillor Kettler was talking about just at the end there, several years ago when I was visiting Ottawa, in a residential neighborhood, they had what she was talking about just right in the middle of the street, this little hard plastic kind of sign with 40 kilometers on it. And I mean, Ottawa gets more snow than we do. So it seems like there's some things that we could start doing that will start to help that along. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with the 30 kilometers through the entire village personally, but I mean, I obviously want everything to be safe for everyone. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like Councillor Brown said, you know, we put a 30-kilometer sign up. That certainly doesn't make everyone go 30 kilometers. So we're just sort of stuck at a bit of an impasse here with what the best way forward is. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I think people aren't stopping at the signs now. And it's a whole education of people. I saw a sign on a TV show that I was watching, and it says, "Slow down, we love our children." And it really is, it really hits when you see those signs that say, "Slow down." And so I think people have to take responsibility, even if they're late for work. They need to take responsibility and be late or get 5 minutes earlier.
One of the
And
residents on Kendall this weekend, or maybe they do it all the time, actually had a plastic cone in the middle of the road, and that seemed to work pretty good when I went by. So they're taking it into their own hands, but maybe we need to look into more stuff like that.
Yes, yes. And I know the rest will come, but it's just the first step to get something going that we need to take. Okay, so do you want a motion to that, or is that enough direction?
No, I would appreciate a motion, because the last direction was back in September. There was for this to be included in part of the transportation assessment. So we just need some clarification, and then what we can do is come back with a report what this would, because like your worship, you're saying there's to do the blanket 30-kilometer zone. Those municipalities that have looked at, there is a process that needs to be reviewed. I would also recommend to have the RCMP come in and have a conversation on, how that enforcement would look like, because that's obviously not something that the village manages, that enforcement, and so we'll include that in the report, is getting the RCMP involved, and but definitely we'll come back with a report if council wishes to proceed forward with this. Just a resolution would be great.
Someone like to make that motion, please?
That the committee directs staff to bring back a report on implementing a 30-kilometer zone in the village core.
Seconded.
All in favor? Carried. Yes?
She did say in the village core, which I think was a different.
Right.
I'm sorry. I assumed that was the village. Is that
yes.
what you're saying? The village.
Yeah.
Okay. Clarification, always best. Anyone else have any questions of the report or the quarterly report? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thanks so much, Clayton, for this update. This really is a lot of good news agenda. There is on page 88, the Village Forest Land Management Strategy. So developing a management direction statement for village forest lands, which is awesome. The note says that we're implementing an internal review process, and then referring to stakeholders and for feedback. I'm hoping, and I would like to recommend that that we don't just refer it to stakeholders, but we actually refer it to do a broader survey of the communities, whether we do that via stakeholders, have them help us share it. I think the stakeholders are a start, but I think the general community would really like some input on that, and it would help, I think, staff in the develop the direction, a clearer direction. Based on community, not just the, we have 2 stakeholder groups or 3 stakeholder groups, but there's,
So I'm glad you brought this one up. So we were actually just talking about this this afternoon in relation to next steps with this. So we're just finishing the review. One of the things that came out of the review is that the changes from our existing management plan are not as extensive as what it demonstrates. Our existing management plan is actually very strong, and so the changes that have come out of the feedback is confirmation of that. And so what we're just trying to confirm is what that engagement would look like, because in the feedback we've got from our consultants or the people who've been involved and our manager of Parks and Recreation is that typically that engagement is when there's a significant change, as you go back out and say, is there things that we just want to check if there's things changed. And one of the things we've kind of confirmed is actually what's come out of the previous iteration of this is really it does not depart far away from that. So what we were talking about this afternoon is we'll be bringing back, and likely it'll be the beginning, or well, we'd know the manager of Parks and Recreation may be away for a couple of weeks here coming soon. So it'll probably be the end of February, but this is what we spoke about this afternoon when him and I met, is bring back a report to council first prior to any engagement, because the departure hasn't gone far off what we actually have. And so to go out and check in with the community when at the end of the day, this is already what they've given us, past directions and confirmed. Sometimes I just don't want to be misleading and ask for their time and energy on something that really is already in place there. So his suggestion or recommendation was for us to bring it back to council first, and we'll then have a recommendation. So that's a bit of a change from the end of last year when we're going through that review, but yeah.
Can I follow up, Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, agreed. And sorry, I'm low battery. I got to plug in. I can't remember what I was going to say now. Management, anyway, it'll come back to me or not. I do have another one. I'm going to try and find the page. Oh, the MOU with UROC. Oh, that's what I was going to say. See, I knew it would come back. The engagement process, I think, for the management direction or the management plan, I think the village has grown substantially since the community gave us that direction on what that park should look like and what that land use should look like. And so I think even if we're not engaging them and asking them, telling them we're going to change this or anything, it would be an opportunity to do some education about these are the lands. It's not all of that. It's this piece. This is the management direction for it. Do you have feedback? So not necessarily asking them to redirect, but to just confirm that people understand that it's a community forest, that it's conservation based, that it's, multi-use trails, all the things. That part of it belongs to the village. And then once you go past that, it no longer belongs to the village and we don't have any control over it. I think that would be, even that educational piece would be helpful. And then the MOU, I'm just wondering, I understand that it's in process. And so just wondering when that might, it's behind for obvious reasons because we've had the extension and the extension.
Yeah, our last conversation, there hasn't been any new dates set for meetings. So with the part, this is the challenge sometimes when you're dealing with multiple partners, and sometimes we may have a keenness to get things rolling, but it's everybody's on has different timelines. So we don't have an update on when that is. We don't have a set date of when we're meeting. The last we spoke, it definitely is a priority for all groups, but at this point in time, the extension and I believe it is till June of this year. So there is a bit of time that we still have, like it was extended another 6 months. And so there is really, I don't know exact time that that all parties are going to get back together, but I would expect that soon.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kettler, did you have any questions?
I think it's getting late, but on page 83, at the top, the inventory of natural assets, it talks about identifying sensitive areas and creating balance of growth and preservation. And then it talks about, the Municipal Natural Assets Initiative that we're doing with CVRD, which is great. And that's mostly around, from the CVRD perspective, watershed protection around Comox Lake. But I still don't really see anything about, the eco asset management. And that's something that, that council's been interested in for a while, identifying those ecological services that are being provided to us by natural assets, and hopefully at some point quantifying those like some other municipalities have done, so that we can know their value, know what services they're providing to us, the cost of what that current green infrastructure would cost in gray infrastructure, and be able to maintain it, because I think that's an important part of looking after this community, is being able to maintain the wetlands, being able to maintain a stand of forest for the services that it provides to the community. So I know that it's not on here, and that's something that we're still working toward, but I just don't want it to get lost. So it's great that we're doing the municipal national asset thing, but it doesn't speak to the eco asset management.
Yes, yeah, good point. And so one of the things I just want to just ensure council's aware of is that, so under the comment section, that's just the latest update on a specific component of the project. So sometimes if there hasn't been activity, it may not be listed there. So the items that you're talking about, eco assets, there is plans to do that. It's not either commenced or it's not far enough along to provide any report. So that is definitely still on the plan. And this item is one that's over a few years, and so there's some activities. This was just one of the components within that is the latest update. So I apologize. We'll try and make sure we're able to make that clear and add those updates in there.
Great, thanks so much, and you guys are doing a great job.
Councillor Sullivan, we'll get back to you, Councillor Brown.
Yeah.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, just reiterate that I think you guys are doing a great job. Again, I really like this format. One of the main things that I flagged, Councillor Brown covered it extensively, just with the MOU coming up with the trails and stuff. I think with the last delegation from UROC, I'm not sure that council is totally aligned with some of the future aspirations there. So I'm really curious when that, to make sure that everybody involved gets their 2 cents in. And also reading that the water treatment facility was brought online. Is that fully functioning now? Is that just right in the system? Is that
correct? Yes. Yeah. So wow. we've been online for since just before Christmas there. So there's been all of our SCADA systems are active, and so our operators are monitoring the system, making sure that things are operating accordingly, and as so we still are going through what I'll call a bit of a commissioning phase, even though it is fully operational, and we're working with Island Health and providing them any updates relating to just our regular reports, but also updates on the status there. So yeah, good news so far. Everything seems to be working really well. Our operations team has done a fantastic job, and it's taken a little while to get there, but we certainly, once we are we're at that point, we certainly will, make sure that we have some sort of official opening or something like that. But right now, obviously, that's not priorities around most of the community is some sort of celebration that way. But yeah, it's great news right now to do that. So, yeah.
Councillor Sproul. Your microphone.
Yes, that's right. I already, I think I have nothing further to say, except I'd like to know who did the wonderful, the entrance to the water system up the roadway. There's a beautiful Inukshuk, and then there's a massive saw blade that's beautifully carved with the village of Cumberland. I mean, I don't know who or how they could do that or who commissioned that, but it's such a classy entrance. I mean, it's incredible, actually. Do you know
Sullivan?
Well, there's a funny story to that, Councillor.
Oh.
I'll be brief. Well, the guys downstairs, one of the fellows down there, he created that himself in-house, which is fantastic. But the original saw blade back maybe 10 years or 12 years, 10 years ago, when the original couple fellas around Chinatown, we were looking at the disc golf course originally, and it was very, the trails weren't like quite complete, and it was pretty rough around there when we first started poking around there. And I personally stepped on that saw blade, which was underneath maybe an inch or two of soil, and it was just in the middle of the kind of the field back towards the back, and we just pulled it up, and then we actually rolled it to the front, and we made that the original sign for the disc golf course. And we had painted just a sign for the disc golf course. But when the course was taken down at the time, then that saw blade ended up in the back of the Parks Department, or the Public Works Department. And then just maybe a month ago, they came up with that great idea and repurposed that saw for the sign, which is pretty awesome.
I don't understand. Sorry to talk about, what machine would cut the beautiful lettering? It's absolutely perfect.
A welding thing, yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, it's a thing to behold, a wonder to behold.
They did a fantastic job. My goodness.
The manager of operations has arrived. He may have some more information there.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, actually, we designed the layout of the sign in house. So, and then we had it CNC routed at a local fabrication shop. So, and then the guys, our crews actually did the install of the sign.
I think that's probably one of the most artistic entrances to a water facility anywhere in the valley. Anyway.
The Inukshuk was built by Nappet, the contractor who built the water treatment plant.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't part of their contract. They just did that on their own.
Social procurement.
Beautiful.
Councillor Brown, you had another question that you wanted to ask.
I'm going to let it go in the interest of
time. Yeah, we got a little bit to go before 9 o'clock. I just want to add, Clayton, I want to thank you very much for all the work that you put into this. You made it very readable for everyone, and the colors just highlight it even more. So thank you.
Well, it's definitely a lot of the team here, this has been helpful for us to, kind of categorize where we are. When there are new items come up, we can come back to council and, have conversations about where some of these items, if there is changes or updates. So if council is, continues to see these as beneficial, it's definitely beneficial on our end as well. So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I do. I think it's really well done. Next, we'll go into the Financial Services Quarterly Report. Do you want to ask questions of the report? Because Michelle is here. Anything you want to highlight, Michelle? No, she's open to questions. Okay, then we will go on to Protective Services Quarterly Report. The chief is not here, but Clayton is here. If anybody has any questions. Yes, Councillor Sproul?
Oh, there's one about parking tickets. I'm just sorry, I had it there.
Oh,
parking, but what does our bylaw officer ticket, does it say no parking in many places in Cumberland?
Page 102.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Kettler? Oh, after Councillor Sproul, Clayton needs to answer the question.
Okay, we go. Sorry, I can't find it, but
there's parking traffic calls. There was 46.
Yeah, some of these may be in a lot of cases are vehicles parked on the roadway that are obstructing traffic.
I see.
It's not as much, obviously not. We don't have paid parking or anything like that, but it's usually cars that are parked in locations, laneways that are obstructing traffic. That's the majority of those are.
Okay.
We see, I'll be honest, this is one that you can see in the Q2 and the other ones that there is often ones, when we're monitoring where the parking for the visitors to the trails and so forth as well. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Brown?
I just wanted to comment on the RCMP report at the end. First of all, that our stats are quite low, which is great. But at the end of the report, they mentioned that one individual was negatively linked to more than 10 files in the third quarter of 2020. So I just wanted to take a minute to note that that person has since passed, and that our system completely and utterly failed him. And so I very much appreciate the work we are doing as a council to advocate for mental health services in the village, and for us to continue to do that, as well as the work that we're doing with the substance use strategy for the Comox Valley as a whole. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone further? No, then we'll, yes, Councillor Kettler?
Sorry, I just wanted to mention also on the RCMP report that the traffic, there's very few traffic violations, and I think once we get RCMP here full time, that we'll have more probably tickets being given out, hopefully, and it will also, I'm hopeful that it will help us alleviate some of our speeding and stop sign running issues.
Yes, so do I. So do I. Next, we'll go on to development services. Does anybody have a question? Yes, Councillor Brown?
Karen's not here. Okay, so there, I don't see, I see so much happening here. And I'm so that's great. But what I don't see is anything on the two houses that are being installed on Bruce Street, seemingly very close to the neighboring property and also very close to each other. They're right now up on blocks, but there's foundations underneath them. Looks like they're going to be set down. I don't remember seeing any kind of application come to us for anything around that. So it could have just been a subdivision, but they seem very close to the lot line. It just seems off to me. So hopefully that's all on the up and up.
I do that coming to council. That might have been before your time.
Oh,
that was a subdivision on Bruce Street there. Yeah.
So those two houses are meant to be one dwelling. They're going to be attached or something? Because they're literally like this far apart from each other. No. I think they were making two lots behind their current lot, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
So seems like
we can get an update from planning staff.
I'll update. I'll find out. I know there's one on Bruce. I don't know if that's the one on page 110, number 5 there, but I'll have to confirm what that is.
Okay. And we have, yes.
Sorry. The other thing I wanted to note is in our building trends, look at the diversity that's changed. If you look from the beginning, it's all, where is it? There it is. If you look at, say, 2009, it's all single family detached.
Which page?
Right? And then look what we're doing now. That's us providing housing diversity. I know, I get that we need to provide a lot more, but I think we have come a long way, and we've got some, I appreciate the multicolored chart offering us feedback that yes, we are offering more housing diversity in the village.
Our plan is working.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next we have our outstanding action items starting on 115 and going to 126. Any questions, comments?
I should, one thing for council's information, any of the ones that are part of strategic priorities will, from this list, are inserted into the first document we were looking at. So if there's any, other than the ones such as write a letter to support this, we don't add the smaller ones, but any of the larger ones that are connected through council resolutions, we enter those resolutions into, they're still noted here, but they're just saying that it may seem like there's duplication, but there's 2 locations for those.
Okay. No further questions, then question period. Please send your questions to email info@cumberland.ca, subject line question period, and we will happily try and answer your questions. I think tonight we did a lot of work and caught up on a lot of things, so it moves staff along to their next set of goals. But I would like to comment that it's really nice to read our agenda because of the color that's in it and the pictures, and you always pick amazing pictures. So thank you. A lot of work going into your agendas.
I think we might need longer meetings for committee of the whole when we get all these reports, because we had so many questions and it gets late, and or maybe, like, you know, maybe if we started a bit earlier for this. So we're
Yes, because or maybe it was lighter. That's why it seemed lighter the last one. Yeah. Zoom makes it very easy to do a meeting earlier.
Yeah, starting earlier would be nice. Yeah.
Any questions, corporate officer?
There's no questions for you.
All that.
Yeah, well, they did so well in answering our questions that, yes, staff did an awesome job. So thank you very much. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Have a good week, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Night.